I'm glad I was able to get a hold of you because a lot of the devs have kind of checked out. Like low power kimchi still hasn't gotten back to me.
Mhm.
Unduster had some issues, and we're still working that out. And then also, shit, who was the other one? Am I messing things up here? Hold on a second.
No
Sorry.
problem. Yeah, no, I'm sorry for the late reply to your comment because I ended up spending pretty much the whole weekend away from my PC, and then I came back. Like you had messaged me pretty much like right after I had stepped away from my PC for a few days, and come back and I see that, and I'm like, oh crap, I gotta get back to them as
Yeah.
soon as possible.
I mean, I feel weird about it. It's just like I feel like a spam bot. I'm just like, hey, I type a different thing in the chat each time. It's not like I just have a copy paste because I don't want to feel even more like a spam bot. But it's just like, hey, I'm a rando. Come on my stream, please.
Oh, and I definitely like I love talking about game development, and for the most part I don't really have very many people to talk with about it that actually do game development. So most of the time I'm annoying my friends just rambling about random code solutions that I've come up with in Godot, and they're just like nodding their heads like, oh yeah, that's cool, man. So I definitely enjoy talking with another developer, especially another Godot developer, since there aren't really a whole lot of us. It's growing, but
Oh yeah,
still definitely not nearly as much as Unity or Unreal developers out there.
yeah. Well, that number is definitely spiked. Give me one
Yeah.
second. All right, so there's that, and then I gotta. I believe I already have a source for Hollow Core because I put all of the games that I've played. Because like, okay, so before the deadline extension, I was like, all right, I have like a week to play all these games. There's no way I'm gonna be able to get all these developers. It's a holiday season. It's almost New Year's. Nobody was responding to me, so I'm just like, fuck it. I'll just play some games that looked interesting to me. So, I regret to inform you that I found yours at the bottom of at the rate count. But I was just
No
like, okay,
problem, yeah.
there's something here that looks like it's starting to do something interesting. So I wanted to check out some games that maybe just didn't get a lot of attention. Let me see if I have the HoloCore source set up. Yeah, it looks like I do. Nice. Hell yeah. Okay, that's there, and then I'm going to change my now playing.
Gotcha. Yep.
Now playing. HoloCore. And that. And is Xeloph the way you pronounce that?
Yeah, that's
like,
it.
Like
or
how
you
should I
can say
pronounce or
Xeloph or Xeloph. Everyone pronounces it differently, including myself. So feel free to say it however. I'm not too picky.
Yeah, game developers, we all have a weird penchant for things that have ambiguous pronunciation. Like Godot, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. Godot, although it is, as far as my understanding, it's supposed to be Godot or definitely
it's
not
kind of
Godot, I don't think so.
It's like a weird GIF situation where the creator says Godot, but like I did the research, and the person who wrote the play that Godot is like a referencing. Yeah, that was like an Irish person writing a play for a French audience, and he pronounced it Godot. So that's the way that I pronounce it, but I didn't really give a shit how other people pronounce it. It's not like I'm going to insist.
Really doesn't matter. Yeah.
It's like, now GIF I will plant a flag in, but
yeah, exactly. I just had this discussion the other day with my mom because she was like, "Is it called a GIF or a GIF?" And I'm like,
listen, mother.
Well, it's technically GIF, but I mean, everyone says GIF because GIF is peanut butter. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's graphic interchange, etc., etc.
Yeah, exactly.
I just think GIF sounds better personally. But anyway, let me see. Gonna double check. Now playing HoloCore, Boss Rush Game Jam 2024, I guess. Yep. And Xeloph. I haven't been giving my spiel about how I'm the Teleco developer because, you know, everybody's checked out. Like, I don't really think I'm gonna get any more ratings. How many ratings I have now is perfectly fine with me. So
Which on that note, I did play Teleco, and I was pretty blown away by it. It was very
uh,
cool. It's definitely one of those things where I've been wanting to experiment with the concept of kind of blending like 3D and 2D elements,
mhm.
since it feels like Godot is just seamless for that kind of development. Like,
Yeah, it's crazy.
so yeah, so seeing something like that in practice, I was just like, immediately my brain is just firing off with all sorts of different crazy concepts of like blending 3D and 2D together because you can just seamlessly flip between them in Godot. It's so cool. And yeah,
Yeah, literally the
combine that with like the audio elements and everything of your game. It was very impressive.
thank you so much. I'm it's been so cool to just like it's like you said, talking to other developers, and then like being I guess like gaining recognition by your peers. Uh, it's it's been a great journey for me personally. I kind of just fell into this role personally. I didn't go into this jam thinking that I would be talking to all these developers and asking them about their games, but it's like you said. I really like being the interested third party who just gives other people a chance because like we're all indie developers. We all have a lot of things to say about our games, and almost nobody is asking us. you know?
Yeah. Yeah, especially just considering how much time you pour into game development. Like, there's always something interesting to talk about, some neat like element of the development.
Mhm.
Um, certainly, and also quick side note. So, there were two other people that worked on this game. I was the lead programmer and 3D modeler, animator. I did the bulk of a lot of the work, although obviously, we had a writer on board,
Mhm.
Hiera, as well as the music producer and audio designer,
Mhm.
nownoir. Which on that note, nownoir actually just now messaged me back saying that he needs to go to bed. So, but
Uh,
he said, he said, you got this. Go, 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 go. So apparently I have his blessing to go on ahead and do the interview. But I haven't heard back from Hiera, so I
yeah.
don't think that they'll be around for this. But yeah, they I can't write or do music at all in the slightest. So it's
Gotcha.
like, even though I was leading the charge kind of with kind of putting together all the technical elements, one of those things where definitely like the art elements that they contributed really unified the project. It really turned it into like something complete.
Yeah. No, awesome. Well, that answers my first question, which was like, so you were the lead developer essentially, and then you had a writer and musician on board. So
Mhm.
how did you meet them for this game jam? Like, how did you first come across the game jam and decide to do it with these people?
So now Noir and I, we actually previously worked on a game jam. Gosh, it would have been, yeah, almost 2 years ago.
Okay.
Or yeah, it'd be 2 years, like 3 months from now. So we both worked on a visual novel game jam, the Nano Reno
You
game
said you and
jam.
Hira.
That was me and Now Noir.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry,
the
I
music
did
person. No, you're good.
I did look at the I did look at the team's like socials, and then I saw that Hero was also into like visual novels and writing and stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, so that's the other interesting connection, is that I also met Hira kind of through visual novels as well. So, but
Okay.
I first met Now Noir about 2 years ago. We worked on a totally different game jam together with a bunch of other people. And then afterwards, I kind of started to learn to code on my own. I'm fairly new to coding and solo game development, so I just kind of buckled in, and I've been doing that for the past year and a half. Which then Now Noir actually reached out to me
Hmm.
as I was developing my first game on Steam, and he was just like, "Hey, I'll do the music for you," and I'm just like, "Cool, let's do it." So
Hmm.
he provided the music for that, and then with this big mode game jam, he messaged me out of the blue saying, "Hey, do you know Video Game Donkey?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course. I've been watching his videos for the past decade." So It was his idea to do the game jam in the first place this time around, and it was very neat because of the fact that we had worked on two different projects in the past, and then we messaged here
Mm,
thinking that we would probably want to involve a writer. Which so on that note, how I met Hiera was Hiera has another game called Kill the Night, which is a visual novel on itch.io,
mm,
and I've been a long time fan of reading visual novels. I've read a lot over the years, and unironically, this isn't me just like gassing up my friend or anything like that.
mm.
That visual novel is insane. It's so good. It's I don't know how deep you are into the visual novel scene or but Hira in particular is very inspired by the works of Type Moon, like Fate Stay Night and Tsukihime and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
his works, it like Kill the Night is something that very much so wears its inspirations on its sleeve, but in a way that feels like it really understands why those works are classics, like what actually works about them. So yeah, I a big ramble aside, I have a tremendous amount of respect for both Now Noir and Hira. They both do incredible work, so it was great getting to work with them on this.
Yeah, so I think like the moment that I started up the game, uh, I think it was pretty apparent that and what was your musician's you said Nownoir.
Yeah,
Uh
Now Noir. Yep.
Nownoir, like I don't think I have to say it, but Nownoir's music is like top notch. Like
It's unbelievable. It's
yeah.
so good. And not only that, but especially like whenever he's really uncontained, whenever he's allowed to just sort of pursue whatever he finds interesting, like the last project that we had worked on, my Steam game, which is a Toho fan game, so it was
Okay.
basically it needed to be an arrangement of a pre-existing track. It's one of those things where like he knocked it out of the park with that,
Mhm.
but even then I was just like, oh man, I know how good his music is whenever he's allowed to just like total free reign over the creativity. And hearing it again like here in Hollowcore, I'm just like, oh my god, his music is so good.
Yeah, and I think I did spy in the comments. A lot of people kind of pointed on or like touched on the I would say is kind of obvious near autumn or near influences.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Uh,
Yep, that was definitely widely discussed in terms of which I don't think that I think that at some point whenever we were talking about the game and conceptualizing it, I'm pretty sure that none of us have actually finished Near Automata.
okay.
I've played like the first through like the first route of it, and I don't think that Hira or Now Noir have actually played it. But we discussed it. We're like, yeah, the aesthetics are really cool, so yeah,
Right.
we can kind of like ape that a little bit for Hollow Core.
I have a
But
bit of
yeah,
a hot take that well, I guess not a hot take. Near Automata is a game that I've played very thoroughly. I've gotten most of the endings, I believe. Uh,
hmm
and yeah, I think it's like probably the strongest thing that Near Automata has going for it is the aesthetics and the atmosphere of that game. Um, and yeah, like I guess if you got the gist, it comes through. So,
yeah,
I myself am anime brained. I don't know if it came through in Teleco, but and yeah, it also makes sense that your visual novel writer also has like has been inspired by the works of Type Moon and things like that. Um,
yeah,
I've only seen shoot, what the hell, uh, Fate Zero,
yeah.
the one written by Urobuchi Gen,
Yep.
and so I think I think I got the gist. I haven't actually watched all of like Fate Stay Night or anything like that, but yeah, very cool. So let me think here. So that answers a lot of my questions. The right. So did you have anything like? Did you have any personal or technical challenges coming up with this? Like you said that you're a Godot developer, for instance. It sounds like you've been in this for a while, but if you had to learn anything special for it, if you had to deal with any personal issues like holidays, family, school, work. This game jam did come out when like everybody was having finals. There was obviously the holidays, and there was just a lot going on. So like how much were you able to work on this as a team? How did you coordinate? Like, and was there anything in the way?
I mean, for the most part, coordination was pretty clear. I think that all three of us were pretty, um, kind of like loosey goosey, I guess, in terms of the direction of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think that within the first hour of them announcing the theme, we had come up with the idea of like, okay, some sort of time control mechanics, probably like robot main character because I'm not really a 3D modeler or animator. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just like the simpler the main character design, obviously like boxy shapes for 3D modeling, that's way easier than a humanoid character. So
I believe
like
that's
those decisions were made very quickly.
right. Yeah, I believe that's the same reason that Toy Story was like Pixar's like A Bug's Life and Toy Story were like some of Pixar's earliest 3D works because they
Hmm.
couldn't really make flesh and bone people look very good. The models for like Sid and Andy in Toy Story
Kind of
were
horrifying.
a little
Yeah.
horrifying, especially the dog, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we're all working within our limitations. We've got the game jam, which only gave us 2.5 weeks, so uh,
Yeah.
learning a new skill set is definitely a hamper on a lot of things. Like personally for Teleco, that game is not very big. I explicitly designed it to wrap up in 10 minutes because that's all the time that I could guarantee the game to get if it was being streamed. So I was just like, well, shit, dude, I have to learn Godot. So I spent like 100 hours a week, like, uh, and a lot of that was just because I didn't know Godot very well. I've coded for a long time, but I haven't really formalized my skill set. So a lot of that got washed up, or got
Mhm.
like it interfered with the process. But as far as like personal things going on, were you able to just like how many hours a week were you put it or a day could you guarantee for the game?
Roughly about, so like starting out, I was pulling like 10 to 12 hours a day
Mm-hmm.
for like the first week. And then the following week, I really slowed down a lot. I was probably doing about 6 to 8 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And then the like final like 5 days of it, I went back to like 10 to 12 hours a day. So
Right, crunch time.
I was big time crunching. Part of so talking about like struggles that we did come across were so leading up to the game jam, now Noir, he really wanted to try and use Fmod, which is I don't know if you've heard of it.
Uh,
Actually, I guess for anyone who's watching, I'll just explain it.
yeah, yeah.
So it's essentially like a plugin that you can use for like all sorts of like audio solutions in games. It's just like a like programmatic audio solution for all sorts of really fancy audio stuff. Um, so for instance, like if you wanted to have like footstep sound effects, but it's not like the same sound effect playing over and over again, you
Mm,
can essentially set up like a sound bank of 6 different footsteps, have Fmod randomly pick one of them whenever you call the event, as well as you can set in like different audio modulation parameters,
mm.
um, which a lot of this now gets into like the audio engineering side that I don't fully understand. I don't know what a low pass filter is. So like that's definitely more so in Now Noir's wheelhouse. So we ended up spending like 2 weeks before the game jam just figuring out these implementations and kind of like formulating a plan for the workflow.
Okay.
um Once it actually came to us like about a week into the game jam, I then started to implement Fmod, as well as I also was working on the level development. Both of these things were being handled by plugins. There's an Fmod plugin, and there's also a level builder plugin that I was using called Cyclops.
Okay.
Um, both of them collapsed.
Oh
Just
no.
just dozens of errors filling up. Could not figure out what was going wrong with them. They just both inexplicably broke out of nowhere at pretty much the exact same time.
Jesus.
So as a result, we just said, okay, we're removing both of the plugins, we're
Yeah.
adjusting the plan, and as a result, pretty much all the level geometry is made up of CSG nodes, except for the moving platforms, which are kinematic bodies.
Hmm.
And then we just used Godot's like built-in 3D audio.
Right. I was gonna point that out actually. So I've had to program like proximity audio before. Luckily, Godot is extremely extremely
It's
great.
really good. Yeah.
It's because as you approach the blue orb, the sound gets louder, right? And then looks like you have a tween fade out of the volume, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So yeah, like let me think here. So uh right. So how did you like come about your idea in terms of like I mean, you said that the time manipulation thing. So did you have to put your heads together for justifying the setting because like how quickly did this specific iteration of the idea come together?
I mean, pretty quickly. I think that like Hiera especially like contributed a lot to the setting and the general sort of mood.
Mm-hmm.
And like especially once again, kind of going back to the near automata sort
Mm-hmm.
of influence. I think that a lot of the general idea of the aesthetics like quickly came together within like the first day or two, and
Mm-hmm.
then from there is just a lot of me like downloading royalty free assets, CC0 texture packs and stuff like this. I think that most of everything here is the PSX Tiny Textures pack that's
Oh, okay.
CC0 on itch.io. So I use that for pretty much everything. And then from there is just like tweaking albedo colors and
Mm-hmm.
tweaking the materials a little bit, and then just like doing a couple of like world environment like post processing effects, and then tweaking the lighting and just generally getting it to the point where I felt like it looked good, and nownoir and Hiera liked it as well. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So I really love the fact that in forward direction there's music playing, and then there's like a reverse version of it when you go back. Uh,
Yeah.
that
The
was a
neat
great
thing
touch.
about that was actually implemented within like the final hour before submission.
Okay,
That was like one
yeah.
of the last things that I did, because Now Noir was like wait, I'm finishing up this backwards version of it right now, and I was just like, all right, let's go, we'll do it. So I had to very rapidly hack that together, and thankfully it came together in a way
Awesome.
that works. So
Yeah. So did you so the gameplay mechanics, you did actually program some pretty sophisticated stuff in here, I think. So like the wall jump is one of the cleanest that I've seen at this gym. Because I've seen a few wall jumps. At the same time, there's you know, like were you able to do a lot of playtesting? Because I think a common thing that people point out is that the objects often move too fast for the collision to keep up.
yeah, so watching that right there, I think that I need to go back and I need to figure out exactly what what's happening there, because I believe that the physics steps are like getting out of sync with the frame rate.
Hmm.
I
Also, I'm reminded. Sorry,
Yeah,
very
no,
quickly.
you're
I
good.
forgot to stream my screen to you, so you have a more real
Oh,
time.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Capture.
we'll watch that. I've been watching the stream on my other monitor, but yeah,
Yeah,
that'll
I keep forgetting because that's literally every single time they're just like, yeah, I'm just watching on the stream, and it's like, no, wait, sorry.
yeah, so yeah, I need to do a lot more research into both the process and the physics process functions in
Hmm.
Godot, because I've got a friend who's like a really long time Godot developer, and I generally trust his word with stuff. But like, I had asked him a while back about like, hey, like, when do you think is appropriate to use the physics process? Like, in your opinion, just generally speaking, because I think that I know when I should or shouldn't be using it. versus regular process. And
Mhm.
he was just like, oh, I never use the physics
Oh
process.
no.
So and since then I've experimented with it with a lot of 3D stuff, and I'm like, yeah, it seems like it's fine to just use the process, and then like at runtime just syncing up the physics steps to like the monitor's refresh rate. But I don't
Mhm.
know, clearly something isn't quite working as I thought that it would. So yeah.
uh, are you aware of the difference between them?
Um, yeah, it's just that the physics process is called like based off of every like whatever like the physics ticks are set to in the project settings,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the physics process is running pretty much like as fast as your computer can handle it, and then the process is running per frame. So if you do it
Yeah.
per frame, then it's depend because I had this problem with Teleco as well. I sent it off to one of my Dutch friends who is currently streaming. I think there's twitch.tv/c3n. But I sent it off to them, and their computer was slightly different, I guess, because when they were trying to ride the audio waves, they would fall in every single time. And I realized that's because, one, I didn't have it in a physics process, so it was running based on the frame rate refresh rate. So,
Mhm.
yeah, it essentially means that if you put your physics logic into the process function, then it makes it machine dependent. Uh,
Yeah. But I mean, I would assume that if you were to set the physics ticks to the same as like whatever your
hmm,
like
right,
machine's
right, right.
frame rate is running at, like if you're doing 144 and you set the physics ticks to 144, then presumably like the move and slide calculation should be happening
Hmm. Yeah,
like 144 times per second is my understanding. But then like I don't know, either I messed something up or my understanding is off. I need to do more research. So
yeah, because
yeah.
a lot of us didn't know how to use the moving platform functionality of Godot. Uh, like I think they have stuff handling stuff like that because, for instance, when the platforms are dropping, then or if I'm going forward on a downslope, and if I'm going too fast, then it will move me forward, and then it will call the moving down thing, but I'm not grounded by that point. So
Yeah.
you know you
Like another weird thing that I noticed too was the fact that like the on leaving platform like tick that you can do in the character body,
mhm.
um where you can set it to like add velocity on leaving a moving platform, that doesn't seem to work even though I have it ticked. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what's happening. There's a bunch of little things about Godot's physics that I need to figure out and experiment with more. But
Right.
yeah.
Other than that, like everything feels pretty clean. Like, of course, you're the game developer, so if anything's off, you're going to be hyper aware of it. But for me personally, like when I play Teleco, I'm just like, oh man, playing this game feels scuffed. But so far, this one, everything seems pretty solid. I really like how you have like, actually, like, how did you handle the wall jump? Because it looks like it. I feel like you wouldn't have made a collider for everything that detects that you're on a wall, but uh, like, how'd you handle that?
um yeah, so what it is that there's a raycast that like points forward, and if and essentially like or it points in the direction that your joystick is currently pressed at. So if you're like pressing
Mm.
into a wall, and also if like the if you're currently on the wall, so it's doing like the check for the kinematic or the character body 3D, saying like if is on wall, and also if that raycast is currently colliding,
Hmm.
then you'll switch into the wall slide state. Um, I believe actually if you hit the tilde key on your keyboard, I think that it shows the
Where the hell did I put that key?
oh maybe not.
Give me 1 second.
Oh no, never mind. It only shows frame rate. It doesn't show the information on the yeah. So I mean I could even
There it
load up
is.
a debug build of the game real quick if you wanted to see all of the debug shapes and everything, but
Sure.
yeah,
I'm here for any content you're willing to provide.
yeah, absolutely. There's I think more than anything though, like one of the biggest things that I was very proud of with this game was the state machine that I implemented for it, because I've
Nice.
also done a lot of like experimentation with different implementations of finite state machines,
Right.
and almost all of them have kind of disappointed me in some way, shape, or form. Either like them having too steep of a learning curve, or like a lot of like redundant code, like
Mhm.
having, like if you want to have like a running state, but also like a jumping state. And while you're in the jumping state, you want to be able to control your air movement. So you do like a vector three, and then you do your inputs and everything. And it's like, I already wrote all this code inside of the movement state, but now I'm writing
Yeah.
it in so I can move while I'm in the jump state. Stuff like that bothers me a lot about a lot of state machine implementations, but
Mhm.
the one that I came up with, I'm very proud of, is it just doesn't have any redundant code like that and is all like very neat and organized. But
Right, right,
yeah,
right.
I can
That's awesome because I'm literally in the middle of for the boss rush game jam. I'm trying to implement a combination of the command pattern and finite state machines. Uh,
ooh,
so I'm kind of
yeah,
learning how to do that stuff. Like literally, like that was the last thing I did before I went to work today.
I'm trying to remember the command pattern. I think I watched a video on that a while back where
Mhm.
they were like showing they were showing something about like how you can use it for like cut scenes and like pausing your character
You
or
can also
something
do it
like
for like undo, redo. That
yeah.
I think like the Soulsborne games, they tend to use a command pattern thing because I've seen the scripts that they use, and it's essentially states allow you to program distinct and forgive me, I'm gonna put a quarter in the swear jar. Uh, states are for like programming discrete modes.
Mhm.
And then commands are just programming distinct behaviors, I guess, like actions. So
Yeah, and that was essentially, I think that I had sort of aped some of that subconsciously with mine, because the state machine solution that I came up with effectively like divides it into what I'm calling states and actions. So I'll pull open the source code here so you can see exactly like how I have this organized.
oh god, oh god, sorry. I was like,
You're good.
the collision.
You're almost to the end.
Reality is a fragile gossamer thing. Uh, let me see. Uh, sorry, did you say you pulled something up?
Yeah, I will screen share here. Let me,
Oh shit!
that screen.
I clicked the game, and clicking also toggles the time
You're good.
advancement. Uh, oh, oh god. Okay, awesome. All right, let's see it. Uh, I'm going to pop this out real quick. So what we have here is Xeloph's sort of debugging Godot like workflow, I guess.
Yeah. So the state machine in particular, we've got this states and actions node right here. This is just like the root node that kind of handles all of the state machine logic.
Hmm.
And it's effectively all wrapped up in this state and action process right here, which gets called in the main process of our player character script.
Mm.
Just, yeah, right here. So that gets called, it passes delta down into it that can then propagate down into all of these other scripts. All of these are all just built-in scripts just for clean organization.
Oh wow.
Um, but effectively, you can see we've got states and we've got actions.
Right.
And inside of each of the states, there are there's a export variable, an array of nodes,
Hmm.
and all that we do is we take our actions and we plug those into the states. So while we're in the idling state, we can walk, we can fall, we can jump, or we can go into the debug state.
That's awesome.
And yeah, effectively, then from here we have our check for state change function right here, where it just simply, like most of my actions have this active boolean
Hmm.
inside of them. So essentially we say if get action fall is active, then we switch the current state to falling. And then from there we go into falling, and you can see inside the falling state we can fall, we can walk, we can wall slide, or we can air dive.
Mm.
Um, And then it also, we switched to that one. We have all of our state change logic right here versus the actions, which like our walking state, this is where we're actually getting our inputs and then doing a like move direction vector 2 right here that will then like take into our player state. We'll grab the we'll grab the walk action dot move direction, and we basically calculate all of our
Thank you for the
move and
follow.
slide stuff right here.
I believe your writer is in the chat. Well, in the
Oh,
stream. If that is Hiera, if that's
oh yeah, yeah, I believe so. Oh,
nice.
yep, yeah. Here I messaged a while back, so or
uh,
actually just now messaged just a second ago.
if they'd like to join the call, they can. But we
Yeah,
might have to move.
absolutely.
We might have to move calls. But
Yeah, either that or I'm not sure if Hira will want to do voice chat.
okay.
Um,
I mean, they can say
so
in the Twitch chat if they would like.
yeah, and or if you want to message me here, I can directly give any additional input that you want to add to the conversation. Either way,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so that's the super quick, rambly explanation of my state machine implementation that I did here. I think like one of the big strengths of it is that at any point with one of these states, like if I decided that I don't want the player to be able to actually control their movement in the air, all
Mm-hmm.
that I have to do is just delete that walk state. And now you're like locked to a trajectory whenever you
Mm-hmm.
jump. Stuff like that is, I think, really powerful for like quick iteration.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And also like, oh my god, like just the other day I was looking through Godot and because I've been trying to read the documentation and get familiarize myself with like the style guides, the conventions,
Hmm.
cleaner code patterns, and everything. So yeah, like looking at the export options in Godot made me feel like a fucking god. Like
Yeah.
just like there it is. I can program a panel in the game that runs on the same UI as all the other Godot nodes, and then I can just do whatever I want with it. I can just drag
Yep.
in anything that I want.
Oh, dude, yeah, and the export stuff, like, yeah, it's all just so powerful. You'll see that, especially if you ever look through any of my source code, like I spam export
Oh yeah.
variables, like just so that, like, at any point there, like, I almost never use explicit references to things. That way, I can be constantly just moving things around in my scene, like
Oh yeah.
in
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
scene tree hierarchy, and
Yeah.
it's all free flowing and creative.
Other
Yeah.
than like, other than weird stuff like bugs in Godot that have to be resolved, the worst thing about Godot is like dependency breaking. So
Mm,
making sure that everything is just an export and that the editor itself handles all of the reference changing is awesome. Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, so did you feel like you had to hack anything together? Like, is there anything that is particularly strapped together with duct tape?
I was about to say all of this right down here
Mm-hmm.
at the bottom of the player script, you can see explicit references. I
Mm.
never do these. This was just me saying like I was rapidly throwing together the final versions of these sound effects that nownoir gave to me.
Right.
Hero was actually there, like hanging out in a call with us, and they both were watching me just hack together all of this as rapidly as possible. Like we've got our footstep sound effects here where I just did the pitch scale and the volume dB, and
Mm.
just every time that it calls this walking sound effect, it just slightly changes it with the pitch scale and the loudness.
Yeah.
So each step sounds slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Thankfully, like this was something that I was already aware of because I had done stuff like this in the past. So
Yeah, it's
I
very
was,
efficient.
yeah, I was able to just like, I knew what I was aiming for, but I was just like tapping away at my keyboard as rapidly as possible in like
Yeah.
the final hour before submission time.
Yeah,
So
and then now Noir
yeah,
drops the banger reversed time loop track.
yeah. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. Uh, so since Hira is here, I guess like, I, or I wanted to ask like what your writing process was. I did read every single one of the cards. You know, I made sure to get all of the ones that seemed optional, and even the one with the screaming sound effect. That was a bit of a jump scare, but yeah, like what was the process in coming up with this? It seems you all had very compartmentalized responsibilities, I suppose. But I don't know if you all had any sort of like collective input.
I mean, we I could definitely say while Hira types out his response. I mean, we definitely had a lot of like input that we gave across like each other's disciplines, but we also kind of agreed from the very beginning, like effectively with each of our roles, we get the final say in whatever our expertise is. So if
Mm-hmm.
it ever does come to a situation where I feel one way about Hira's writing, but he feels a different way, he gets the final say on it. Same thing with Now Noir with his music and his audio design. But I mean, thankfully that never was the case. It feels like we were all kind of always on the same page in terms of what we thought was good. So but
Awesome.
yeah, definitely more. The other thing that I forgot to mention is that Hira actually helped a lot with a lot of the graphic design parts of the game. Like he designed the logo,
Mm-hmm.
designed like the little pause and like fast forward and rewind icons in the top right. So
Mm-hmm.
I initially tried to do it and I was terrible at it. I can't do graphic design at all. So he really helped a lot with his input on that front.
Yeah, awesome. These these look like retro graphics. Uh,
Yeah.
oh my god. So how much tweaking did you do for the time mechanics, by the way? Because I think that double time is a little too fast for anything.
Yeah, on looking at the frame rate, I think that part of the problem is that I didn't really test anything below 60 FPS,
Mhm.
and it looks like currently you're dropping down to around 40 or so.
Yeah, I've got like a
That
GTX 970, so I'm not exactly on
yeah,
the most modern hardware.
yeah, and unfortunately, I think that the level because everything is built out of CSG nodes. So, like, yeah, the game is not optimized at all. So, for considering like how basic everything looks, the game really runs kind of terribly. But I was hacking things together as rapidly as possible in terms of level geometry. Um, so yeah, I think that that's really the main issue is that once the game drops below 60 FPS, it just whatever implementation I did come up with that was working well at 144 and 60, it doesn't work at all below 60.
Mm.
That seems to be kind of where the game is breaking.
Yeah. Uh. Yeah. I guess that's probably a physics process thing. Maybe. Here
Yeah.
6 says, I was quite insistent in adding that scream. I forgot to mention it to Xeloph, but thanks to the extra hour, we managed to scare a few people, hopefully. Uh, I mean, it was quite unexpected. I was just like, all right, this one has a play button. And I was like, oh, I see. I think I might have actually gotten to that one before I think I got to the top before read the bottom ones, so it seemed like I was supposed to get to the bottom ones first. And then I was supposed to get to the scream because the other ones implied that I picked up the audio log. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, that's another thing. So I believe it was something insane. I don't quote me on this, or grain of salt, because I've only heard it as essentially a rumor. But somebody said that like 100 games or so got submitted in the deadline extension, which is insane because that's like a fifth of the games, right?
Yeah.
So any of the games that you see that were submitted with less than an hour on the clock, those were the games that were submitted in the deadline extension. Uh, did you? So did you have anything else that you were trying to rapidly throw together for that last deadline extension?
I think that there were some additional mistakes that I had made whenever
Mm-hmm.
it came to implementing the notes. There were some formatting issues, as well as I think that I had missed a note or something like that. My memory is hazy, but Hira helped guide me through what I had missed and putting together everything. I think that the scream sound effect was also added in that final extension hour. So yeah, we did a lot in the final hour. I think that I used up almost that entire final hour down to like the last 5 minutes.
Mm.
So the whole extension hour. So yeah.
Yeah. When we were working on Teleco, we thought that there was a bug that caused everybody's game to crash, like when you do the window mode change at the end of Teleco. Uh,
Hmm.
so understandably, we were very upset, and we were trying to like figure that out. It turns out the Godot generates like an app data folder, and apparently there's like cached information that just fucks you up. So if you've played the game before, uh, sometimes you have to delete that folder before you're able to see the ending again. Uh,
That's that's very strange.
yeah, because I was like, I
And
didn't.
you don't have like anything that's like that you're actually that's programmed in there to like save data in the app data, right? Like
Nope.
it's just that's that's so bizarre.
Yeah, it was very annoying to figure out because I also ripped out exclusive full screen because I thought that might have been causing the issue, and so that's why Teleco runs in windowed mode by default, which is and it doesn't change. But yeah, the deadline
Yeah.
extension was like even though we spun our wheels on that, like it was very man that final hour was so frantic. Like thinking as a game developer, I was thinking like we've all been crunching on this for 2.5 weeks. We're freaking out. I wonder how many other people are freaking out as we speak. Like how many other teams are in Discord calls frantically putting things together. Uh, that was a bit of a weirdly high stakes situation.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was depressed whenever the Cyclops level builder and the Fmod plugins like broke one after the other because
Mm,
that was a rough blow because of the fact that I was like I spent 2 weeks like building out this whole implementation and figuring it out like before the jam. Like I planned so much, but the plans did not amount to anything. It was just like that was really frustrating and just having to kind of push through that. I was a little bit rough for like a day or so, and then I eventually picked myself back up and I'm like, all right, we'll get through this, we'll figure something else out.
mm,
So yeah.
yeah. On the topic of the story, Hira, so I read all of them, and I think I get the gist in terms of what the autologs are saying, and that like somebody on an expedition to I guess the core of the Earth found this weird time stone, and that over time like you read more about how the expedition around the person who held onto it kind of evaporated. Uh, so how I guess like I'm not sure if I missed something, but like, did you have like I guess, a broader written story as to why in the future now we are now a robot in the cemetery, uh, like waking up and figuring out what happened?
There, I can also already say while here also types up his response, but there is a lot of additional story content that just didn't make it into the game.
Yeah,
Um,
I
we
figured.
were we were originally planning on doing, I think, like a total of 3 levels. More so like at least like a small introductory area, this main level, and then probably like a smaller outro level. But
Mm,
yeah, as things kind of like unwound and I lost a lot of time with the plugins breaking with I yeah, the project very suddenly downscaled to just the one level, and then from there just trying to it kind of became apparent that a lot of the other notes wouldn't really make sense in the context of this one level.
right.
So yeah.
Yeah, it sucks because and really quickly, hello JS Maniac. We are here interviewing the developers behind HoloCore, one of the Big Mode Game Jam games. You can play that game pinned to the top of the chat. Uh, Hero 6 here is the writer, and they say, I wanted to hopefully expand on it if we were going to continue the game in the future. Nice.
Mhm.
So, yeah, like, so there are surprisingly, okay, I was surprised personally, but I guess it makes sense. Most people make sort of like short arcade-like experiences that either loop or like have, I guess, procedural levels or something, but there aren't a lot of narratively driven games at jams, I guess, just in general. Didn't
Yeah,
want to talk overflow Xeloph too much with work, honestly. Yeah, no, it's fine.
I appreciate it here.
It's just like, hey, can you like make additional side content where you just like find these and tweak the level design and do more time
Yeah.
stuff? Could you add a new time mechanic where like Um,
Well, and I think that Hiera and I, we both, once again, kind of going back to how we like met each other and started like talking about game development stuff is like at the time that I was releasing my Steam game, he was also releasing his first game on itch.io, Kill the Night. So we
mm,
were actively discussing like our upcoming releases of our games and just like all of the stressors and all of the like just insanely massive work that goes into that final like 10% of putting it into like a finished state. So we both very much so kind of understand all of like the stress and all the hard work that goes into finishing a game. We're very much so kind of the same mindset, I think, whenever it comes to that.
mm. Yeah, and that's cool. You can definitely like drop those in the chat if you'd like, or even my Discord or something.
Yeah.
uh, it's very cool to release those things. Just like, man, because game jams they're a great opportunity, of course, to just like stop thinking about it so hard. Don't be a perfectionist. Just get it out the door, in whatever
Mhm.
state you can get it in. And yeah, it's been very valuable for all of us because a lot of us have a lot of the people that I've talked with have said the same thing in that they have sort of a perfectionist streak, and it's just like no, you just gotta get it done. So being able to get that out the door and then do a game jam, like you've had a lot on your plate, I would imagine. uh,
Yeah, I mean I definitely do have that kind of bad perfectionist streak, and I've definitely tried to be better about that, especially considering that I am very new to game development and coding as well. Um, Once again, going back to like my first Steam game that I launched, I've started to fully rewrite it from the ground up because it also runs horribly despite the fact that it's like a very simplistic like pixel art game. So
mm,
I had somebody in my Discord for that the other day just be like, yeah, like my PC is kind of old, but it should be able to run this, but it just really can't. And I was just like, oh yeah, just all thinking about like all the time that I poured into perfecting a bunch of stuff whenever I really could have like spent more time. I don't know, I guess sort of refocusing my efforts, especially whenever it comes to learning better code patterns and trying to create a product that actually functions well rather than I don't know, like spending dozens of hours on like animating pixel art and stuff like that.
right.
It, there's something I guess what I'm getting at is that there's an importance to sort of figuring out what a project really needs and focusing in on that first and foremost.
Yeah, a production pipeline.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, one of the number one things that I tell people, if their game feels like if it visibly looks rough, if it has like a lot of issues with it, very often it comes down to like you have a lead developer, and what lead developer means in the context of game jams tends to be somebody is doing like 70 to 90% of the work. uh,
Mhm.
so especially with the game jams, like none of us are really doing this for money or anything. Like we don't get money. We get bragging rights more or less
Yep.
if we win anything. But uh, most importantly, we have a project that we can take into the future. So I'm hearing that I'm hearing you've implied that you're going to be continuing work on this project. Uh, right?
It's undecided at the moment. Mostly my fault being undecided.
Mm,
I'm kind of currently in a phase where I'm just experimenting with a lot of different things in Godot. Like just earlier tonight, the whole reason why I'm up this late is I'd spent the past like 10 hours messing around with networking stuff in Godot. So
mm.
I'm experimenting with a lot of different features of the engine and just I don't know, kind of brainstorming on what I actually want to do next. But yeah.
Gotcha. Uh, Airsex, it sounded like you had a lot more lore planned out. I guess you could obviously take it and continue it into a visual novel or something, since you also seem to be a solo dev for those.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, the number one thing that I tell people when things aren't working out in terms of like the technical combination of everything, it's just like, yo, you could just like find more people to help you. uh,
Yeah.
Humans are social animals, but even if we weren't, having another person on board is the greatest superpower you could have, because delegating tasks and having a division of labor is just incredibly powerful. Just
I
by
definitely would have liked to have had a 3D modeler slash animator on this project, because I can do it, but I'm unbelievably slow, and the results are okay. They're not particularly amazing. So I spent a lot of time on modeling and animating the robot guy. So
yeah, I mean, everything here like works pretty well, and I really like the visual flair of. Let me walk all the way back over here because I wandered away from it a bit. But I really like that like you have the sort of spin when you go off the wall and everything. It looks like there was actually time and effort put into it, so I'd say that what you have is above and beyond for for like a 2.5 week game jam at least, especially while coding. But Xeloph and nownoir carried the whole project, all things considered. I was brought on as writer since Xeloph liked my aforementioned game, which is a visual novel. Seeing Xeloph and nownoir work so hard was kind of intimidating, but I knew I was brought on for, so I tried to focus on what I could or can do, so I went ham with the story and lore. Awesome.
yeah.
Was there anything that you struggled with, like creatively, in terms of your writing? Did you have a clear idea of what you wanted to, I guess, get across in the events? Like Xeloph said, we had to cut some content. Yeah. I mean, that's just gonna happen. Like, Teleco, and I don't know if you've played it, but Teleco, I told my modeler, like, I'd like 5 different TVs. Let's just start with that, and then if we can cram any more in there, then we'll do it. And then we cut that down all the way to 1 TV. I guess like 1.5 TVs, because the antenna segment was technically one of them. But yeah, we wanted to have more levels as well. And unfortunately, that's how you convey a lot of the information in these games. So yeah, nothing to worry about there. Okay, I fell. But so was there anything that, like, just purely due to time constraints, that you really wanted in the game that you could not? You said with the plugins that were just messing up, or the additional levels and content. Was there like a feature, a movement option, just like anything that like you thought to yourself, like, I really want this in the game, and you just couldn't have it?
Definitely more movement options. I was originally planning on creating probably at least like 3 or 4 more movement options. Mostly the big thing that I was thinking of was like Mario 64 movement. I really wanted to have a side flip, a long jump, stuff like that. I wanted to spend a ton of time just creating the like most fun character controller that I could make, but very quickly, like once I got to this level, I was like, okay, we're 5 days in, and I haven't even begun to do any sort of level design. So at that point, I decided that I needed to really start jumping into that, and then that ended up taking way longer than I expected, even with the plugins breaking. So as a result, I ended up just sort of coming to the conclusion, like, okay, I won't be able to do anything more with the character controller, which is fine. I think that the character controller has all of the movements that it needs to have, but certainly there's something fun about like even more movement options that the player can kind of play with and experiment with. And it'd be fun to see players like come up with all sorts of like fancy movement tech to speed run through the level. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
definitely something I'd like to do for a future project.
yeah, I don't remember where I heard it, but it's just like if your game is fun to just run around in and not actually do any challenges or anything, then you're doing pretty good.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And Hiera 6 says the story is going to be told purely in terms of found intel, so it was a different experience writing each note, which was quite fun, as opposed to following a single narration like a novel. Cool. I'm gonna go ahead and play your jump scare scream. So how did you actually make the sound effect? If anybody on board here has that information.
I'm trying to remember here. Did you just find the sound effect somewhere? I'm actually not too sure, or if nownoir got it. I feel like I missed the entire conversation about adding this. At some point, it landed at my feet, and I was told just put this in the game. So yeah, I
Oh,
would. Oh yeah, you're in debug mode. I think that you hit the. Oh yeah, it's because you're in the
oh, the tilde, right?
Yeah, the tilde key. Yep. So yeah, this is debug flight that I left in the game in case if somebody was struggling with the game, but they wanted to fly to the end and see the credits. So
Gotcha.
yeah, which on that note actually was. I hope that Hira doesn't mind me saying, but it was at Hira's request because he was struggling with completing the game, which now in hindsight, very much so could more so be my fault because of the sort of bad performance of the game.
Sampler from the Siberia Hell Sounds creepypasta. I believe I've actually seen that before because I was like, this sounds familiar, but I don't really remember. It might have been a long time ago. But cool. And yeah, so that's a good topic. One of the other choke points in a lot of these is that none of us really get the opportunity for a lot of people to play test our games. So was it just the team that was playtesting?
Yeah, exactly. It was just me, Hira, and nownoir, which I got them set up. Another interesting thing about this was our first time any of us used GitHub as a team,
Oh
or I
yeah.
guess like version control in general as a team. So I kind of had to take the lead on figuring all of that out because I'm also just not very experienced with version control in general. So the
Mm.
most that I ever did was with my Steam game. I just would make commits, and I'm like, cool, I did a little snapshot backup of my game. That's all that I know. I learned a lot more about like different branches and like how to like set up like a GitHub enterprise, and we did all of that so that they could so that Hira and nownoir could download the latest builds, and I also got them to download Godot so that I wouldn't have to export builds for them to play test. They could just load up the project files or do a pull request, not a pull request. They could fetch from Origin and then just play the game inside of Godot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, GitHub was really intimidating for me because a long time ago, well, a couple years ago, I was working on a game project for about a whole year, and I tried to revert it back to like a previous snapshot, but it was like from the main branch, and I was on my branch or something. I don't know, something happened, and like we were actually legitimately terrified that we had just nuked the game. Well, I nuked the game.
No.
So ever since then, that's been like a sticking point. I'm just like, shit, dude, I'm scared of this thing. I technically know how it works, but I'm nervous, you know? But yeah, version control.
I think that it's just one of those things, and it's the same thing that where I don't know what it is about like so many tech sector stuff and their propensity towards like using the most weird and obtuse terminology for everything.
Right.
It really bothers me. It's the same thing with like Blender, where like as I was learning Blender a lot more like about a year ago, like just trying to like understand what they mean whenever they say baking a mesh. Like what is that? What is baking a mesh? And it's like Googling everything and trying to like put it all together. It's like, oh yeah, you know, then you like bake your textures into here, and I'm just like, and you put it into like simple English terms for me.
Yeah.
So stuff like that is just so frustrating. And then whenever things don't work the way that you expect them to, you get even more frustrated with it all.
Yeah. I've been on that kick as well because learning state machines and command pattern and everything. I don't know. Just like I also have a lot of versioning hot takes about just like none of these terms are consistent because they were kind of discovered over time by different people, and there's no unifying like linguistic way to refer to these things. So we just kind of refer to it by whoever popularized the terms. So yeah, it's a little hard to wrap your head around, like, and I think there are reasons for some of them, like Godot, for instance, instead of color, it uses albedo. I don't know what the hell an albedo is.
Oh yeah, no, me neither.
But I guess I'll trust them on it that they did it for a good reason. Um,
There's like another name for it also that I recently heard where I was watching a video and they're like yeah, the albedo channel on this material, which it's also sometimes referred to as this. I can't remember what they said, but I'm like oh my god, like why are there more names for it? Why can't we just settle on one naming convention?
yeah, no clue. Uh, what the hell was I going to say? Right. So, do the people in your daily life, generally speaking, like, did you talk with other people around you about your game development process? Did you pass it off to like family and friends to play test after it dropped? Have you like talked with people in your daily life about like, hey, I made a game and like this is what it's like? That goes for you as well,
Not
Hiera.
Yeah, not so much like IRL, but definitely like a lot of online friends. I've got a couple of other like game development friends that I passed it on to, as well as like just other just internet people who that I'm friends with and or are interested in what I'm doing. Like I also posted about it in the Discord that I manage for my Steam game.
Mhm.
So a bunch of yeah, I've gotten a lot of like feedback and been able to talk about the game with some other people here and there. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because like when I bring up I brought up the game jam. I brought up like video game donkey to like my coworkers, for instance, and I feel like okay. So I looked it up and I thought like Donkey's really culturally irrelevant in the
Mhm.
gaming space. He does have 8 million subscribers or followers on YouTube, which when I looked at it, I was like, that doesn't seem like a lot for Video Game Donkey. Like the man's pretty big. Like
Yeah.
he got into Sonic Mania as a reference. Like uh, so I was a bit
He's
surprised
not
about that.
just big, he's big.
He's big, yeah, and that's why big mode. But so I would talk with people about it. I'd be like, okay, Video Game Donkey has a publisher. There's a game jam, and I have 2.5 weeks to make a game. And then like 90% of the people, even people who are like into gaming and stuff, they're just like, okay, they're
Yeah.
they're just like whatever.
Yeah.
um,
Which is why it's like yeah, I think that it's just one of those things, especially whenever it comes to. I think that both you and I are probably the same way in that, like, the most interesting thing about game development is a lot of the like really in depth, like technical angle of things, or at
mhm,
least I don't know, like that's what I tend to be the most interested in. And obviously, like people who don't actively do game development, like they're not going to be invested in hearing about a state machine solution. So
yeah, I mean,
it's yeah, it's kind of tough to, I guess, like match the enthusiasm that most people will have for it.
mhm.
It's yeah.
Well, I kind of see it like telling somebody like I'm in a band or like I wrote a book. Like
Yeah.
they'll be like, okay, cool, buddy, and then they'll just kind of move on.
Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
but
For
that
for us, we know how much it means to us, and how like genuinely cool it is to like spend, hours and hours and hours every day crunching away at trying to like get this thing done, and like dealing with all the pitfalls and hurdles of coordinating a team and bringing everyone's ideas together. All of that stuff is awesome and it's so much fun to do.
mm,
But obviously for anyone else, it's it's everyone has their own interests in life, and yeah.
yeah, of course. Yeah, I just wanted to, like so part of the reason that I like doing these and maybe who knows, maybe I'll turn it into like content later or something because I guess not a lot of people are just interviewing the smallest developers that exist on random game jams, right? Uh,
Yeah.
but part of the reason is that like a lot of us have a creative pursuit, have something that we want to do. My 3D modeler, for instance, has spent a lot of time just kind of spinning his wheels on doing 3D modeling, and I'm just like, dude, nothing's stopping you. You could just do it.
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
literally, the only thing that is preventing you from doing this is yourself, and I mean that in the most literal possible way. uh,
Mhm.
and
I have a friend who well, more so two friends that are brothers that I talk with a lot about game development. They released a free game on Steam called Sway. It's like a bullet hell game that they released a couple years ago,
Mm.
and it's just like one of those like small little like underground games, but I genuinely love it. And I'm constantly talking with them. I'm like, so when are you all gonna make another game? When are you gonna they're like, I don't know. Game development is hard, and I'm like, it is hard, but
Mm.
you could start on it right now. You could start making Sway too. And
Yeah. Personally, I don't have any hobbies because I dedicate all of my free time to creative pursuits of this and that. Uh,
yeah,
and yeah, just like my intent is sort of to be like, if you think that you have an idea, you want to put it to paper, game jams are just a very easy way to make anything at all. But also, I'd like to showcase, like, okay, so you probably have a more sophisticated code base than most of the people at the jam, I would say, including myself by far. About a week into Teleco's development, I was just like, okay, I have to make this code spaghetti or this is not getting done.
mhm.
I don't know what the fuck a signal is. I'm not going to take the time to learn to find out. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm trying to like formalize it better. But in terms of writing, in terms of making an interesting experience, like Hero 6 here seems to have a lot of creative talent dedicated to just writing like in visual novels and everything. So I guess even games that seem competent, even games by people that you respect, you don't understand how much of that shit is held together with duct tape and a dream.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And it's one of those things where once again, like like especially whenever it comes to making games, it's by far the most complicated art form in existence right now.
Well,
There's
it's
so
all of
many.
the art forms.
Yeah, exactly. It is all of the art forms put together, and even on the technical side, there's not a single person alive that has the entire technical angle fully figured out.
Mhm.
There's always something that doesn't work right, something that they don't understand. You can have the most like god tier master programmer. There's something that will stump them,
Mhm.
and they have to figure out some spaghetti code hack solution to make it work.
Right.
So, yeah.
Or your deadline just doesn't allow for the actual story of a game to be told.
Yep.
and,
Yep. Exactly.
and then if you extrapolate that out to the actual industry, your CEO could have wildly different priorities because they just switch, and now to appease shareholders, you have to
Cut 25% of your entire employee base. That
or you just shift
unity
like
announcement.
you just top down manage people out of
Uh,
existence, and now nobody
yeah.
has a cohesive vision. Like uh,
Uh,
the industry is rife with problems, but on the ground level here with us, like okay, so we all clowned on Yandev, right? Yandev
yeah.
is
Oh
an
yeah.
easily clownable man, the most easily clownable man in existence. Who knows? Maybe he should be in jail, but
Yeah, with the recent allegations, probably, most likely.
yeah, but we all clowned on Yandev for years about having if statements or like if else chains nested for a bunch of
There's
the
got to be an easier way to do this
yeah a
tweet,
switch statement,
which
obviously.
isn't real. He didn't actually post that, but it is still a funny meme.
Okay, he didn't actually post that.
Oh yeah, no, that's actually photoshopped. That
Okay,
credit where credit's due, that is not actually a real tweet that he made, but it is very believable that he would post
all
that.
right. Interesting. Okay, well,
Yeah.
I've learned something new. Maybe I should do better research. But
Still very funny though. I like to believe that it's real. That's my own head canon.
hey, I mean, but see, we've all been there. Uh, we've all been a newbie programmer with big ambitions, and we just don't know how to hack together what we need.
Hmm.
On that note, and maybe maybe this is also an untrue allegation, but I've heard that the Undertale code demonstrates that Toby Fox actually did the same thing for
That
all of
one
the
actually
dialogue.
is real. That
Yeah,
one is real.
and
Yeah,
like
I saw that as well, where he put all of the dialogue inside of one giant match statement. That's
I
insane.
heard it was nested if else statements.
Is it
uh,
nested if else statements? I thought that was all match state, like one big match, but I don't know.
even
Maybe
if it isn't like
either way,
even
it's
that
bad.
is like bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
but like
Well, and especially like because I originally first started to learn to code in Game Maker.
mhm.
Um, I don't So like, because like game makers divided up into separate rooms, and
Yeah.
my understanding is that you can only really have like one room active in memory at a time.
Hmm.
So like, I don't know how he did that, like where that match statement or that nested if else is located at, and how he's constantly keeping it loaded into memory, or maybe like unloads it and then loads it when he
Right.
needs dialogue. I Either way, my God, none of that is good. Why would he do that?
Yeah, but the important thing is like
It's
that game.
very funny, and it works, and it's
Yeah,
a masterpiece of a game. Yeah,
yeah. Undertale is like one of the most culturally relevant games of the 2010s, I would say, and
yeah.
especially in the indie space, like triply so for that. So, uh, just be able to show like, hey, these developers also have problems. These are the kinds of problems they will face, but the only difference between you and them is literally just persistence.
Yeah, which I did want to say, like, I before I started to learn to code about like just shy of 2 years ago, I like even as much as like 3 years ago, like if you had asked me 3 years ago, like, hey, are you going to make games? I'd be like, no, I literally can't learn to code. That's impossible. Like, I'm fully incapable of learning. I 100% believe that I just couldn't, like, it was beyond me, because I would like watch a Unity tutorial and I'm just like, I have no clue what they're talking about. I don't understand it at all. And the thing that I learned about learning anything that's difficult to learn, or I guess like learning in general, is that it's totally okay in the learning process to be completely lost for a bit and just kind of like be a sponge that absorbs information. There's value in like being able to just say, okay, I only understood like 5% of what was just told to me.
Hmm.
I'm just going to kind of nod my head and then say, okay, if I type this, then this happens. I don't know why it happens, it just does. And that's kind of how I learned to code. Was I would just go along with, if I type in all of these words, then I am now able to move the player character with WASD. I don't understand how or why it works. And then over time I would learn other things that way, and then steadily everything kind of began to come together. And most of that process was not me being confident at all in my understanding of things. So it's I don't know. I guess that like the learning process is not as frictionless as we oftentimes want it to be or think that it should be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And also Hero 6. So you make visual novels. What was your experience doing that? And also thank you for the follow. I'm sorry I don't remember your name, but I barely didn't catch it. But I would like to hear that as well. So yeah, was there anything that was just like absolutely just driving up a wall? Like you said, the plugins were giving you a lot of hassle, but was there any other technical aspects like of the movement options, the animations that were just like, it should work, it should just be simple, and it's just not working, it's just not going?
Honestly, not really. I think that everything went pretty smoothly.
Hmm.
Blender was like as frustrating as I was expecting it to be. I don't know. To me, Blender is just like an alien spaceship. It has too many buttons.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I was expecting that. I feel like Blender went about as smoothly as what I could have hoped for. I don't know. I mean, outside of the plugins breaking, it was honestly a pretty smooth process. Um, Designing all the movement options, like the state machine behaved exactly as I expected it to. I really didn't have to spend a whole lot of time debugging it. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Awesome.
Honestly, all things considered, it was probably about as stress-free as a game jam can possibly be. There's always going to be something that will go wrong and stress you out,
Hmm.
but obviously, like, I don't know, I really can't complain too much.
Which is funny because you just told me that you thought you literally didn't have the brain for coding.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So, which once again, I don't know. I feel like oftentimes, or at least with me, like I get weird like, or too much like in my own head about what I can or can't accomplish. And every single time that I just try to buckle down and actively apply myself. Same thing with 3D modeling. Like whenever I first picked up Blender, I was just like, this is impossible. Like there's just too much. Having to learn like what a material is, or figuring out like the dope sheets and the action editor for the animation stuff. I was just like, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'll just roll with it. And eventually things have started to come together, even though Blender still is there's so many parts of Blender that I haven't touched that are a complete mystery to me.
Oh yeah,
So
it's a huge ass program, dude. And then there's like shader
so
code
much
and stuff
to
like
it.
that.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. And then they just added the geometry nodes in 4.0.
yeah,
Those are crazy.
I have no idea what the hell that is, so don't ask me. But it's funny you say that. I actually blew somebody's mind yesterday who was interested in game development. Uh, okay, I do have the display capture up. So I was just kind of like explaining how Godot works, and like that it's such an interesting design decision to always package each program with the icon SVG, because it
Mhm.
just strips out all of the necessary thought for making something run and like be easily referenceable. It's just like, oh, I don't want everything to be a white featureless void. All right, you just drag the thing on. Like there it is.
Yep.
There's your material. It's insane. Like
So good. It's so useful.
Godot is
Yeah.
just such a such a useful interface. Oh man, it blows my
Yeah, and like
mind.
for my networking stuff that I was working on, I literally was just like in fact I've got it pulled open right here, where I was just have it set up where the I'm just using the icon.svg as a movable player character right here. So yeah,
Nice.
it's super useful. You can just drag and drop the icon wherever for all sorts of implementations for quick testing.
Let me bring up your screen here. Where'd it go? Oh, here it is. Uh,
Yeah.
were you showing something?
Yeah, yeah. I was just showing like super basic thing of like step one of learning Godot, of just using the icon SVG and just moving it around with WAS to like, yeah, this is the networking stuff that I was working on earlier today. So
Mm. Man, it's so awesome. Just such an interesting design decision.
yeah.
Let me think here. So, in terms of the game jam and I guess the surrounding context behind that, so they extended the deadline voting or the voting for deadline until looks like the 12th. So we've got a couple more days, right?
Mhm.
And that's like, man, it's been a long time coming. This has been a very long voting period. And so after you ship the game, after your team got everything in there, uh, like how did you cool down? Like, did you check out? Did you start playing games? Did you play games together as a team? You know, how did that go?
Honestly, for the most part, I have not played very many of the Game Jam games.
Mm,
I really just kind of immediately rolled into just doing more coding, other Godot stuff. I tend to spend almost like all of my time just coding in Godot. It's it's I don't know. I've spent most of my life like being an avid gamer and playing a lot of games, but ever since I've picked up programming, it's really replaced a lot of my game time. So
right.
I
Uh,
it's one thing where I don't know. I guess that like I'd personally like be more engaged with playing other people's games if I could actively talk with them about their games, like have a sit down conversation with them. I think that's one thing that was really cool, is like being able to, the little bit that we have talked about Teleco, like has been really enjoyable
hell yeah.
because I think I'd really like to talk with developers directly about their creations and stuff.
Hmm. Yeah,
I guess that I've become less of a gamer as I've started to make games, is what I'm getting at.
yeah, that's totally understandable because I mean, creative pursuits are just like, you know, you have to dedicate yourself to them to some degree, and being able to dedicate yourself, for me at least, like once you have that bug in you, you're just like, okay, well, this thing won't get made unless I make it, right?
Yep.
And so whenever I'm playing a game or something, it's just like I just don't have free time. It's like I'm playing the game and it's like, but I could be making my game.
Yeah.
Because again, it's not going to be made unless I make it. So
Yeah.
this game jam for me,
and the thing that you want to make, like, it has to be made.
right?
There's no two ways about it. It needs to be made. It has to exist.
Yeah. My frames are like dropping to shit. I think.
Ooh,
Hold on a second.
yeah.
I think it's because Godot is rendering my 3D thing. I was just like, something changed here, and then Godot has been like a little bit of a memory hog, or not a memory hog, a GPU hog for me for some reason.
Yeah.
Also, I recommend. So I don't know if you have VSync on, but I recently made a frame. Like I made a Twitch stream overlay that reads my microphone input and then gives me a reactive avatar rendered onto a 3-dimensional Game Boy screen. I briefly had it on stream, but when I didn't clamp the FPS, it took up like 12 to 20% of my GPU, and it was a small thing. There's nothing going on in it. So until I clamped it at like 30 FPS, like it was just I couldn't open a different game along with it. So looks like HoloCore is checking a little bit
on it, but I don't have the actual like max FPS clamped because I wanted to like for people to be able to play it at 120 or 144 FPS or whatever else.
Yeah. But back to what you were saying. So I don't give myself free time to play video games really, unless I know that it's going to be a banger. Part of the issue of having the productivity bug is that I don't consume enough trash, and I mean that in the most endearing way possible. Like you know, everything doesn't have to be a 7-course like meal. You know, like potato chips are delicious and they have a function and place in my life. So when I play a game, I have to make sure that it's like well worth my time. And sometimes trash is valuable. Like sometimes trash has great stuff in it that you can use and put into your own weird, pretentious like project that you have high-minded ideas for. But this specific game jam, this is my first game jam in a long time. My last game jam was at the Riot Games headquarters in St. Louis, and that was an unfortunate amount of time ago. So I had this idea because I was watching Justin Six's stream, and he was sort of waiting for developers to kind of be in the chat so that they could see their games being played. Because a lot of us don't get to see our games being played, certainly not start to finish, and we don't get to talk with other developers, so I just thought, like, because of itch.io's rating system and how it works, it's very community-oriented. Like, only other game developers can rate. The only category on itch that is affected by external third-party stuff is the popularity category. You could technically put out an Instagram ad for your game, and then it would get to the top of popularity every time, which is weird, but
yeah.
Other than that, at least the rating system, it really encourages you to do, like, people go into Discord, they do the rate for rate. Like, you play my game, I'll play yours, we'll both rate each other, etc. And since it's still private, like, it's not even that you have to feel bad. You can still rate it honestly. But it's like you said, like, I've sort of turned playing the itch games even into productivity. So I make sure that I sit down and talk with the developers because I play these games and I'm just like, dude, the person is in the Discord. I could literally cold tag them right now and ask them what the hell they meant by this, you know?
Yeah, and I guess that maybe what I should do is I should just try to like be more outgoing and be more sociable and like especially around like game jams and things like that because obviously I don't know. I have the classic creative person problem of just not being as sociable, being way too, I guess, like insular, where I'm just like, oh, I just gotta sit here for 12 hours a day and toil away at my craft in total isolation, which like, you know, you don't need to be like that. And it's better that you aren't that way. I think it's good to talk with other people in your field and reach out to them and kind of, I don't know, be more sociable in that way. Yeah, so that's definitely I think kind of a weak point of mine, especially where like I started up like the Discord for my Steam game and like all the people in there, they're constantly talking and I'll hop in like once every few days. I'm just like, yeah, I've just been doing nothing but toiling away at just random coding tasks in Godot. Just yeah. So
Gotcha. Hiera 6 says trash media are good case studies to learn what not to do in your own work as well, especially if the eye to notice what you found wrong in it. Yeah, absolutely. I spent a lot of time uh, early in my early in my young adult career, I guess. I spent a lot of time consuming trash media to make fun of it. Uh, but that sort of got old after a while, and the format kind of died off. You know, you had your things like Angry Video Game Nerd, Red Letter Media, etc. Um,
mhm. Yeah.
and I could go more into detail with that, but overall, for me, like even even in terms of like what not to do, I think I have a pretty good handle on that. And a lot of it will come out in playtesting. Like playtesting is very important. You got to playtest early and often. That's, for instance, I believe the ethos behind Valve Studios like work, even though they don't really do as much game development anymore. uh, but yeah, like personally, and I was talking with Bluepin Studios, I think in the in the Big Mode Discord about this, but I like to focus on what can be improved rather than from the context of what isn't good enough. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that
Uh,
makes sense. Absolutely.
Reframing it that way, it's just like, okay, there is something valuable here. Now, how do we make it like the best it could be? Because you know, part of the community engagement, we were talking about how a lot of the comments, and you know, everybody has to be prepared for the comments to be asynchronous with the rating, right?
Yep.
Everybody wants to leave a nice comment to shine a good light on things. But if you reframe it in terms of like what can be improved rather than what isn't good enough, uh, it still lets you express what you feel about, you know, what's good here, what can be good, or you know, like reframing is sort of everything in terms of that conversation to make sure that you are clearly communicating yourself, but also not like treating it as if it's like terrible, you know, like as if it is it's bad on a moral level, like a moral judgment.
Yeah. Oh
Uh,
yeah. Which like I don't know. I don't know if it's just that I'm not very like critical a lot of the time. Like
mm-hmm,
you mentioned about like in the past watching or like engaging with a bunch of like trash media for
mm-hmm.
the sake of I don't know, like just like wanting to just trash on it or something to that extent.
Yeah,
Um
as a comedic
yeah,
endeavor, I guess.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, which like I've definitely done that as well at certain points, but
Yeah,
I
I
don't
still
know.
do
I
it.
think like
I
yeah,
just I just have
I
toned
don't
down
know.
on it a lot, reframed my mentality on it.
Yeah, I think that like with me, especially over the past few years, like I've just come to just genuinely, like unironically like a lot of just genuinely bad media, so
Nice.
long as it's not like morally bad.
As long as it's
Like if
not
it's
like
like some
redo of
like
healer or
yeah. I recently had a friend try to sell me on redo of healer and how it's actually good, and I'm just like and you
mm,
know what, I do sort of trust his opinion on things, and I'm like, okay, you're making sense as to why you would like it, but yeah, I think I'm
mm.
gonna sit this one out. I'm like, I don't think that I'll be able to personally be sold, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's something like or like something that's like meant to not even be art, something that's like propaganda. It's
Mm-hmm.
like something like that is not is something that I'll willingly fully trash on, but just like kind of like inept media where clearly the thing that the person has made is not at all what they intended it to be.
Right.
It's like I love it because and I do feel like there is some genuine artistic expression occurring there. It's just that the person who made it doesn't understand what they've made.
Mm-hmm.
They've
Oh yeah.
just kind of like fumbled their way into creating something that is genuinely fun, as so long as you're not, you know, I don't know, I guess like hyper over analyzing it.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, like even good things have bad things about them.
Yeah.
There, if since you two seem to be in the anime space a little bit, like anytime I talk about Made in Abyss, I make massive
Yep.
asterisks.
Big asterisk on that one, which I love it. It's a great series. It's so good. Like all of it is genuinely like deeply
Big
engrossing,
asterisks.
but then there's like elements of it where you're like, where I do feel like those big asterisks are genuine criticisms
Yeah.
against the craft of it, because I feel like those elements are there for the artist and the artist alone. He personally put those in there
Yep.
because he likes them.
Sir, this is
No
Wendy's.
consideration whatsoever for what's good for the audience, I guess. And I think like that is sort of like a breakdown of communication between the artist and his audience whenever, like if art is communication, I
Quentin
could
Tarantino
say,
and feet.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. If art is communication, I could say some random gobbledygook phrase that means absolutely nothing to you, but means everything to me. Obviously, like I'm only doing that for my own sake. And I kind of view that same sort of ethos with art like Made in Abyss, where I'm just like, yeah, he didn't make that because he thought that that was going to improve the story or that people would really enjoy with it or click. That's there for him, and that's kind of disappointing.
uh,
So,
really, it just
yeah,
makes me like. I mean, okay, so I really like deeply personal stories that are mildly unhinged.
yeah,
I would say that Made in Abyss's version of it is something that he should really keep inside of him. but
yeah. Which, like, at the end of the day, I don't know. I'm generally like, I don't want to like police people in terms of what art they can or can't make.
of course,
I just want people to be, I guess, like aware of
yeah, just like it's like I said, like even good things have bad things about them sometimes. Problematic media, like it's sort of hard to avoid. Actually, hold on a second. Are you still on the call with me? Oh no.
one way or the other. And I think that once again with like the Made in Abyss author, I think that he's maybe a little bit too in his own head, a little bit too detached from how other people are going to interpret those elements of his work, where it's just like yeah, dude, I don't know, maybe you should keep a little bit more to yourself. And yeah,
And yeah, Hiera 6, yeah. You gotta put a disclaimer each time you talk about it. Exactly. Made in Abyss is a thing that would be a very great video game series. It sounds like it was written for a video game series. I was surprised when it was
I
original.
believe that like in an interview he had mentioned that. Well, yeah, because I think that the author originally was working on games, if I remember correctly. He did some yeah, he did some character art for a couple of games before
Yeah, but
writing Made in Abyss.
it's a manga that got adapted into an anime, and it's got strong characterization and a wonderful setting. It's just got a lot of problematic things about it.
The music, Kevin Pinkin, it's so good.
Yeah, I actually used the music to DM D&D sessions.
Yeah.
So it was great. Welcome back, Cyberwitch. Obviously, we're here with the Holocore developers. So yeah. As far as
Yeah, well,
like,
clearly you can talk with me about any and all anime, which I feel like I've recently been having more of a break with anime as of late. I haven't really been watching much and have kind of begun to sink into a hole of just like, man, a lot of anime just is not very good. Uh,
uh, fun fact, I believe most of the anime that exists came out in the past 10 years. Uh,
yeah. Oh yeah. In terms of like what's coming out seasonally, yeah,
mhm.
absolutely. There's so much more that's been
It's
like
like I remember
getting
back in the
pumped
day,
out every single season.
people would make those charts, right? They would make the charts of what's coming out, and there would be
Mhm.
like maybe a 7 by 10 grid of like whatever, and that was still a lot. But you could pick and choose which ones you wanted. Nowadays, it's so inundated that it took me like 3 years to figure out that there was a. Actually, no, I think it was like a year or so. It took me about a year to hear about Tatami Galaxy's original net animation series,
Ooh, yeah.
Time Machine Blues. I still haven't watched it, but like Tatami Galaxy was like one of my favorite
It's pretty
things.
fantastic, yeah.
Yeah. So
Masaaki Yuasa is such a great director. Everything that he makes is gold.
right. Time is short, or no, The Night is Short. Walk On Girl was fucking
Mhm.
fantastic.
Yep.
Really made me flash back to watching Tatami Galaxy for the first time. Except it was just a whirlwind. Just absolutely, just it felt like such a dense movie. But still, that took me a while to figure out that even existed. There's just so much shit out there now. And I actually, you two will probably appreciate this thought that I had. I had sort of an existential crisis thinking about it, but I sat down and I was just like, what if, think of this depressing alt history where Japan never got onto 2D animation. Like, what if anime just didn't get made, and all we were stuck with for animation was Looney Tunes and like Family Guy? You know,
Yeah.
you know what I
And
mean?
even on top of that, I think that it would really there's a bunch of other downstream like effects of that. Like we probably wouldn't have gotten Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah,
We wouldn't have gotten like a lot of the really interesting like the Castlevania anime, which I thought was really good. I liked it.
yeah,
Yeah, there's definitely like Japanese animation has had such a profound cultural effect across the world of animation.
right. And in particular, I thought because like nothing that I can think of would have filled the void. Like you can't guarantee that there would have been a replacement for it. Uh,
Yeah.
and then I thought like another depressing alt history. What if Japan did start getting into animation, but only after the digital era? Because like some of the most peak 2D animations came from anime. Like Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust is a huge example. Obviously, like Akira, um,
Yep.
Studio Ghibli's like most of its roster. You know, like
For me, my all-time goat is Yu Yu Hakusho personally.
nice, nice.
And like I love everything. Probably unironically my all-time favorite anime, and I also just love the like visual designs that Togashi put forth for it. Like it's such a like stylistically just like stunning show to just look at.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it'd be quite depressing.
Yep.
Because nowadays with the inundation of the anime industry, you just don't have like a lot of that artistry anymore. So I'll give a strong example, and I guess this is a very big tangent off of Holocore, but so
Oh, we're good. Yeah. Go for it.
so I started watching the Rurouni Kenshin reboot with my roommate because he's never watched Rurouni Kenshin, and I remember watching it as a child. Uh,
Mhm.
and I didn't really remember a lot would have happened in that, but we were watching it, and I was just like, man, dude, this just feels so mid, like like
Here's the thing. I fully 100% agree. I don't think that Rurouni Kenshin was ever good,
okay,
even though I liked it as a kid. I like going back to it. I reread a good portion of the manga like about a year ago, and I was just like, man, I don't I don't think that this was ever really that
okay.
good, to
I
be
mean, yeah, yeah,
honest.
yeah. No, no, no,
That's my own personal spicy take about Rurouni Kenshin is I
absolutely.
feel like it's honestly just I don't think that it was ever really that good personally, but
I would
yeah.
say it's along with some other things like fuck, I never watched Love Hina, but I'm gonna group it in that category. Love Hina and like I guess a lot of the shonen that was coming out back then was very indicative of the era. And nowadays we find a lot of that stuff crass and trite and just kind of bland and dull. Um, but at the very least, like okay, so I was watching it, and it wasn't just in terms of the story writing. The story writing was absolutely not its strong suit at all.
Yeah.
But I watched it, and I was just like, this just feels like boring, bland, stock. Like you got a lot of shots like from straight on angles. The environment doesn't play into the events as much. The artistry just isn't there. And I was like, surely I do not remember it being this bland to watch this anime. So I was like trying to tell my roommate, like, dude, like I'm not even a Rurouni Kenshin stan. I know that guy's fucking weird too. Uh,
Yeah,
but let's
Nobuhiro Watsuki, piece of shit.
yeah.
Sorry about the
No,
swearing,
it's fine.
but
I
yeah,
swear all the time.
yeah, Tara, that guy is he should not be walking free.
Yeah. So I was like, surely it can't have been that bad, even with the writer's unfortunate proclivities. And I looked back and I was just like, all right, we're gonna watch one episode of the original. So we went back and we watched the episode where they introduced Sanosuke. I think that's his name. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
and unfortunately, I learned Japanese at some point. So as a child, it was very mysterious that he had this symbol on his back. But when I learned it just means bad, I was just like, dude, this guy's lame as
Mhm.
fuck. Like,
So boring, dude. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just like so much of Rurouni Kenshin is just very formulaic, very boring, very predictable.
mm.
That being said, though, like the original anime, the production is gorgeous. That
Oh
show
yeah,
is stunning to look at, the original 90s anime. But like the storytelling, like, man, it's just really not good.
It's just
Um,
not there.
I've heard that some of the live action movies are actually pretty good, but,
Mhm.
I haven't personally seen them, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But I'll give this example. So when they introduced Sanosuke in the reboot, uh, he just kind of is just like, "Hey, Kenshin, I'm gonna fight you now." And then they go to a riverbank. It's broad daylight, uh, and they have a single exchange, and they do the shonen slowdown thing where they're just like, "Ah, oh, Kenshin jumped over the sword strike because he's just so swift, and now he's gonna take him out." And then he beats him, and it's really predictable and pretty boring. We go back and we watch the original. Sanosuke is not like this brash, hot-headed guy who is just fighting for no reason. He seems like he's actually looking for challengers. They have this introduction where he like interferes with a bunch of pro-democracy thugs? Question mark.
Yeah, that was in the original manga. It sounds as though the reboot kinda, like, truncated, I guess, a little bit.
Oh no, it's still weird. I have
Yeah.
no idea what the hell the politics of Rurouni Kenshin are, but the pro-democracy thug angle is very strange. It kind of feels like it feels very like union busting for something like uh. Anyway, so he fights the pro-democracy thugs, and I guess from the framework of the writing of Kenshin, if you think that's rad, then it could be rad, I guess. And then he like protects the lady because he's also nice to ladies, I guess. And then when he fights Kenshin, it's at night. They have a very long exchange where they're staring at each other, and I think this is part of the reason that old anime seems to shine sometimes. They took longer to do things. The anime that did get funded had the budgets and the production staff to just keep going for a long time, and they would just stretch it out,
Mhm.
which is its own problem. But they tried to make it work. So in their exchange, it's not in broad daylight. You feel like these are two distinctly different characters with distinctly like personal moral codes and histories. Uh, and then like they have their single exchange. Kenshin actually jumps onto a tree branch, which Sanosuke like chops down. Or no, he
Yeah.
doesn't chop down. No, he jumps onto a tree branch in order to formulate his attack. So they're using the environment. And then when they have their exchange, it seems like it could go either way. But Sanosuke is actually the one who decides to hang it up because we've established early in the episode he's nice to ladies. So some ladies and some small children come into frame, and he's just like, I don't want to show violence in front of girls or something. And then he decides to call it quits right there. And it's just like, so instead of it just being like the regular shonen thing where one guy has higher stats so he wins, there's actually like a character dynamic at play. And then
Yeah.
after that is resolved, the branch that Kenshin jumped onto, turns out he slashed it because he noticed that there was a guy behind the fence, like spying on them. So that also like increases the audience's awareness of how badass Kenshin is supposed to be because he's hyper aware of like trouble afoot or whatever. Like there was so much going on in it compared to the original that I was like, okay, all right, maybe I'm not crazy. The original had things going for it, and this new iteration is just bland as fuck. Like,
Oh yeah, I think that that's definitely very accurate. There's so much to still enjoy about the original, even though I think that like the broad story beats and a lot of the characterization is just kind of boring,
mm,
especially like compared to everything else that was coming out from that era. I don't know, man. Like I just ugh.
it
I,
sucks though. It sucks because it makes me feel like a fucking boomer. I'm just like back in the good old days. It was
no,
with our
and
analog
I
animation.
agree. I think that whereas there have been like some anime that I've really liked in recent years, like I really enjoyed Bocchi the Rock. If you watched
I
that
actually
show is
just finished that like 2 weeks ago.
oh dude, like it was so much fun. It's such a fun show
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
very creative. Like I especially like all the goofy like animation stuff that they did,
Yeah,
like the
yeah. They
ones going back to Blender, like the 3D animation thing that they did in the final episode. Like
yeah,
yeah, it felt like
and
just all the creativity and fun that I want to see in anime was there.
yeah.
But yeah, I feel like just I don't know, especially where the industry is right now, of just people really getting exploited
Mm.
for their work and just getting paid less and less and having to work longer and longer hours. Like the industry is just and I know that like people were saying this 10 years ago that the anime industry is dying, but like I really think that it is dying at this point.
I don't
It's
think it's dying. I
getting
think
really
it's a
bad.
bubble. It's probably
Yeah.
gonna they're probably gonna realize that it's unsustainable, or the workforce is gonna probably do something about that because the exploitation of animators is another issue. Also, Cyberwitch, I have not seen Utena, although I have seen the works of that director or the writer of that with or no, I think
I
it's
was
just the director with Mawaru Penguin Drum.
I was going to say Mawaru Penguin Drum and Yorikuma Arashi.
Yeah, I haven't seen that
I've
one.
funnily enough, I've only seen the first 4 episodes of Utena like multiple times over. It just doesn't click with me for some reason, but I did really like Mawaru Penguin Drum.
Nice. Onion Part of Caffeine. Hello. Yeah, we're sort of wrapping up the interview process, but
Yeah,
we're just talking
yeah,
about anime. Uh,
yeah.
which is good because like this is also just talking about the influences of things that we've seen. Penguin Drum is really funny. My friend and I, that I just watched Bochi the Rock with, we constantly joke about the child broiler. It's just like,
Yep.
is it metaphorical? Is it literal? Are they broiling children? Is it just like a metaphor for the outcasts of society and the people that slip through the cracks? Is it all of the above? What are they doing with the broiled children? Just like it's very silly, but
Penguin Drum it's a lot of fun. I really appreciate like how I guess like how hard it is to tell like on what level you should be taking Penguin Drum seriously.
uh, I will
Like,
say it probably has one of the only segments where there is a traditionally presented, and it's only a small segment of it. But I remember that it's the only time that I've seen anime try to do a Western style musical. But it was only for one bit in one episode. I love Utena, but it has really high budget, really high low budget old anime energy.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's a gorgeous show. I just something about Utena, like it just I'll try again eventually, but like I just keep bouncing off of it and I genuinely don't know why. I feel like I'll watch an episode and I'm like, this is really fun. I
Lots of
like it.
repetition.
And then I
Gotcha.
just don't watch more. It's
Mm,
weird.
yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot of the repetition, the song that plays as she's like going up the tower. Yeah.
Yeah. They really had to do with the most of what they had back then, I guess. It's
Yeah.
like I said, like they took longer to do things back then, but they tried to make it work. But at the very least, in that things were a bit slower, things could be more impactful. But nowadays, we're very efficiency minded with like how efficient the time use is.
Yeah.
Everything feels very fast paced now.
Which I don't know, like definitely I think that we could stand to slow down a little bit, be a little bit less efficient.
At the same time, I don't like watching anything that has more than one season.
Yeah.
It's like 26 episodes. That's when I'm just like, all right, if anything is more than this, then I will. It drastically increases my effort threshold. um, man,
That being said though, I did recently kind of as like my own wind down thing, saying like I'm playing less games isn't entirely true. I have just like stuck to a single type of game. I've really gotten into spending a lot of time on JRPGs recently because of the fact that they're like so I don't know, just like cozy,
mm,
very like rejuvenating. That's sort of been like my go-to gaming media as of late is just playing JRPGs. So
okay, very
yeah,
awesome.
which long I guess to the point that I was getting at to connect that in is like long form storytelling because no JRPGs are short, minimum of like 40 to 60 hours. So yeah.
Right. I also wanted to point this out. So hold on a second. I can't tell if it's because I'm chugging. It's probably because I'm chugging.
Oh yeah.
Maybe the game has been on for too long and something is breaking because this
Might
is
be,
paused.
yeah, could happen.
Uh,
Oh yeah, wait, yeah, that's weird. I think that it is slowly dying.
maybe that's why it's chugging. Uh, well, all right. I guess if you do have anything other to say about Holocore, you as well, Hira, if you are still in the chat, I'm interested in any sort of weird stories you have. In particular, actually, I like to hear about any internal weird things that you have, like if you have names for the characters that you just didn't fit in, because it's just weirdly common that nobody has time to put in a name for their character or really has the space to justify it. As well as just like any inside jokes about the development process, about any of the events that happen in it.
I mean, I don't think that we ever came up with a name for the main character, unless if I'm just forgetting about. Like I said, I think that like the big thing was that there were many times where like I would be asleep and then I would just wake up to like a wall of text of like Hiera and nownoir like having discussed a bunch of ideas, and then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go and get my coffee and then I'll sit down and read through all of this. And definitely at times I feel like I would just like completely forget about or miss something that they had mentioned. I I think that like one thing that I could improve on a lot is improving my own organization skills, because I it's one thing for me to be working on a project by myself where I'm just like, oh, I can slam out random spaghetti code everywhere and I know where everything's located. But
Yeah,
but like obviously working with other people, like there does need to be a little bit more organization, a little bit less chaos.
gotcha. Uh, I would like to ask Kira if they have anything to say about just like the general direction that the story will take, and if there's anything that what they wanted to accomplish, or I guess elaborate on, or if there's any like quirks of the story that they think is really cool. None of the characters are named; all of them are just titles like the Doctor and the Survivor. Very cool. Um, so if you have anything about like the direction that the game would take, and hold on, I might have to sneeze here, but okay, now I'm good. Uh, and yeah, just any other weird stories. Like I do like the easier on the brain has a certain aesthetic to it, dehumanizing the character into their defining traits. I've heard that described. That's a descriptive naming. I think that's what that's called. I mean, I don't know if that's like the proper term for it, but that's generally how it goes. Like you'll see that a lot in like Dark Souls. Almost all of the creatures and the characters are named by a descriptor of them, I think that kind of lends it to a dark fantasy mystery feel, because maybe their name has long since passed, or maybe they never had one, or you know, I like to call that phenomenon, and this is a term that I personally use. I don't know if anybody else uses it, but I call it negative context space. I guess it's the mechanics by which mystery arises. It's like there should be information here, and there isn't, and I don't have the context for it, so it makes it feel more meaningful. It makes it feel more interesting.
Yeah, I get that. That makes a lot of sense. And I definitely like whenever writing sort of like takes that approach, because yeah, I'm also a big From Software nerd.
Yeah.
So I feel the same way, where it's like, especially the way that From Software handles a lot of their storytelling, it's just so engrossing because of the fact that I feel like it kind of gives the promise of there being something interesting
Mm-hmm.
without there necessarily being something there.
Uh,
Spicy take about Elden Ring. I kind of feel like Elden Ring really is kind of lacking in a lot of like really like interesting resolutions, but a lot of like whenever you hear about parts of its lore, you're like, oh, that sounds cool. I want to know more about that. And then I don't know. I
oh,
feel like
I
Elden Ring doesn't deliver very well, but
I did the
it's
deep dive, dude.
conceptually cool. Yeah.
I
Oh, did you?
I had a notebook and I was writing down everything that I could about like little bits of lore and story here, here and there, and like character designs and stuff. And what people have analyzed, because you know the Soulsborne games have all been about collective understandings of story. Like it's a collaborative process where everybody comes together and then shares their findings. Elden Ring goes way fucking deep, dude. It was way deeper than I could have ever thought. Like,
There's a lot there. I guess that like my only thing, and I'm not trying to claim like I'm the authority on it or anything like that, or
mm-hmm,
that my interpretations aren't flawed. I guess that like whenever it comes to comparing it to like Dark Souls 1 lore,
mm-hmm,
I feel like there's a broader overarching idea that I was able to connect with Dark Souls 1 that I'm not quite
mm.
connecting with Elden Ring. Like I it's like, oh, I don't know, Radagon and Marika are the same person. What does
Big
this
spoils.
mean towards like the oh yeah, sorry, big spoils for Elden Ring. Yeah, the biggest spoil actually for
Yeah.
Elden Ring, but it's like it's like, what does this mean in terms of like broader thematic ideas? What are we trying to convey to the player in terms of like a deeper thematic meaning with like these lore bits? And
Mhm.
I guess that like I don't really know what Elden Ring is building towards. Like, what is the big overarching idea of it? There's a lot of lore, a lot of
Mhm.
interesting history to the lands between. I guess that,
Right.
yeah, I don't know. Like, what's the thematic idea to Elden Ring is what I'd more so want to know.
Gotcha. Hero 6 says, I definitely want to explain how the robots came to be and how the world ended up this way in the future. Very good. Hopefully we see that in some form or way in the future. For
Yeah.
Elden Ring, I would say that there's only one spoiler that's probably bigger than the America thing, and that's that it's very likely that and maybe if you're comfortable with me giving you probably the biggest spoiler in Elden Ring,
Oh yeah, yeah. Go for it. I'd probably.
it is that Melina is very likely the Glow-eyed Queen. Uh,
Oh, I actually didn't put that together, but not that I mind. Totally fine.
so
That's
the overarching
interesting.
the overarching narrative in almost every single Soulsborne game, it's sort of like a Buddhist saying thing. I believe it's where if you try to remove the yin from yang or the yang from yin or whatever of the overall cycle, things eventually fall to ruin. So in Dark Souls 1, it was removing all of the darkness in the world and only leaving light eventually makes the world fall into a horrible decay.
Yeah.
Uh, and so Elden Ring is like you need a fucking anthropology degree to understand Elden Ring. I'm not even joking. Like,
Yeah, there's a lot to it, which is why, like, I don't. Once again, I don't want to claim that I'm the authority or that my interpretation isn't flawed.
mhm,
It's just that I guess that maybe more so my complaint would be that I don't mind it being simpler. I think
mhm.
that it would be okay if it was a simpler story. I feel like because of the level of complexity and how much unpacking needs to
Taoist there.
occur,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry.
it's like, "Oh, you're good." It's like I finished that first playthrough of Elden Ring, and I'm like, "That was a game. It was a story that I experienced." I didn't have, like, the same, like, visceral emotional response that I did finishing Dark Souls 1 for the first time,
Mhm.
and I think that's just because it's so hard to understand everything that you just experienced on your very first playthrough of Elden Ring.
Right. Uh, sorry, which engineering Taoist is also Buddhist. Yeah, this is me fumbling with the terms, but essentially, like a lot of Eastern religions focus on holism. Uh, and so the broader concept in Elden Ring is that Marika removed the Death Rune from the Elden Ring, uh, which allowed certain members of their dynasty, I guess you could say, to be immortal. And those are the demigods. Their fates have been like stricken from the rights of death, essentially. So the entire story, like in a very actually cohesive way, tells like essentially uses all of the death rights that have been presented throughout human history, and then like forms a magical sort of history around it in Elden Ring. So the entire story of Elden Ring is about how uh, death used to be handled in a more natural way, and that was with the era of the Glow-eyed Queen when she held on to the Death Rune. But when it was removed, the lands fell into decay because with nobody dying, that interferes with the concept of holism. Like you removed something and you're trying to have undue control over the forces of nature, and it had dire consequences. So it's sort of like the hubris of thinking that you have any control over death whatsoever, and the
Makes sense.
consequences behind
Yeah.
that. So
And a lot of those themes were also really in Sekiro as well.
yeah, exactly.
There's a bunch of overlap there. Yeah, that makes sense.
Like immortality is actually like a sin uh, in Sekiro. I think it's like it's
Yeah,
a corruption. It's a thing that it is not
the
desirable.
dragon rot. Yeah.
And the centipede, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
super cool
Yeah.
theming in Elden Ring.
I am excited for the DLC for Elden Ring if it ever comes out.
Man, I am shit, dude. Like I've put 140 hours in Elden Ring. I haven't beaten it because of an unfortunate event that happened that removed my capacity to play it. But eventually, I did beat Malekith. I actually have a Malekith cosplay that I'm working on. Um,
Ooh, nice.
Man, dude, God.
God, Malekith is such a cool fight too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I don't want. I hate being down on Elden Ring because there is a lot that I like about it.
Mhm.
It's also just I feel like it's also like the From Software game that I can nitpick the most. There's so many little things about where I'm disappointed with it, but
Mhm.
then I also will think about other parts and I'm just like, oh my god, it's such a masterpiece.
Yeah. I referred
It
to Elden Ring,
yeah,
Bloodborne. I used to be like super huge into Bloodborne, and I'm still huge into
yeah.
Bloodborne, but I'm just like Elden Ring is like peak fiction. Like it's peak art. Like I don't know what how else to describe it. At least in terms of my personal ethos. But hello, Grogdev. Grogdev, if you're not aware, is the developer behind Tarot Survivors. And if I didn't mention it, Cyberwitch72 is the developer behind Witchcore. So two very cool developers, Grogdev and Cyberwitch. Funny enough, they're both game maker developers, so you'll have a lot of overlap with them. um,
Yo, I didn't really ever make much with Game Maker, and by that I made one level of a bullet hell game. So
man,
I didn't really get too far into Game Maker before I kind of eventually decided I was like, I want to make 3D games. What's an engine that can do 3D? And I looked at Unity and Godot, and thankfully I made the right choice.
funny enough that you say that. Both Cyberwitch and Grogdev have their own implementations of 3D in Game Maker.
Yeah, I've seen that it's come a long way.
Well,
Speaking of like Toho project, which I mentioned earlier, there's one person in the game maker community that's been doing a bunch of stuff with like pseudo 3D in
mhm.
game maker. So
Yeah,
yeah.
Cyberwitch implemented a. It's not actually how Mode 7 works, but she made sure to make a game that emulated Mode 7 by having purely two-dimensional textures that are rendered in a way that simulates 3D. And Grogdev here just straight up did 3D in Game Maker. Or at the
Yeah,
very least,
I
Grogdev's.
remember looking into it a little bit, but it was a long time ago. That was I mean, yeah, it would have been like 2 years ago, so it was probably even harder back then to do 3D in Game Maker.
Mhm. And then Grogdev here. Actually, I didn't say it correctly. Grogdev's like other developing partner is the one that made the renderer for 3D. Have no idea how Game Maker 3D works. Yeah. Um, So if you're just joining us, this is the developer of HoloCore, the lead developer, along with Hero 6, the writer for it. My game is chugging like fuck, and it's even worse in OBS, so I apologize for the frame rate, but the music is incredible.
Yeah.
I I hope that does the musician have like the projects for this game on their like socials?
I'm not entirely sure to be honest. I would have to go and check, but definitely though, Now Noir, I know that he's currently accepting commissions, so it is like if you need someone to do music, he is phenomenal. He's so incredibly good in terms of like meeting deadlines, and obviously like his music is incredibly high quality. um Not to like put down me or Hiera, but like Now Noir is definitely like the most professional of the three of us. He is unbelievably like just experienced in his craft.
Nice. Well, all right. Any further input from Hira or you on just like any weird stories that you want to tell? Any sort of shout outs, anything that you're struggling with, anybody you want to shout out, etc., etc.?
Um, Outside of honestly, yeah, go and check out Now Noir's music. Um, he's incredible and great to work with, and also Hira's game on itch.io, Kill the Night. I'm unironically a gigantic nerd for his game.
Hell yeah.
That visual novel
Feel free to plug
is
those in
one
the
of the
chat.
best. Yeah,
You
I
can just
will.
drop those links.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab that real quick. I'll post.
That's just facts.
Unironically, yeah, I'm not gassing up Hero with this. It's just one of the best visual novels I've ever played. It's so good, and we've got another mutual friend of ours who also is like obsessed with this visual novel that Hero wrote. It's so good, especially if like you're a fan of Type Moon stuff. It's really great.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, here, Six, did you have any further input? Just like anything about the writing process, any sort of stuff that you wanted to say? I will be shipping these with VODs. I've been clipping VODs kind of slowly because I've done over 50 of these by now. But I will try to get you footage of your game being played all the way through. I guess as well as our commentary. But I might do some
quick
light
question: Do you have a YouTube channel?
I'm probably gonna make one at some point, but I'm in the middle of a different game jam, so I don't know if I can stretch myself that thin. But yeah, I would like to try to edit these into something that maybe other people can enjoy outside of Twitch. So, oh my god, I'm lagging so bad.
It was well, thanks for having us on. It was great talking about. We've been going for what, like an hour and a half at this point.
Yeah, you said you had to go to sleep, and I was just like,
I mean, I regularly stay up way later than I probably should. It was a fun conversation. I'd definitely like to talk more with you in the future about
Absolutely.
anime and Elden Ring.
Yeah, again, like one of the best parts about this, even if Teleco gets rated much lower than I thought it would be, because the ratings don't sync up with the comments often. The most valuable thing for me has been talking with other people with the same priorities as me, the same backgrounds, the same struggles, the same triumphs. This has all been an exercise in finding my people, and even if Teleco doesn't get played by Donkey, even if nothing I made sees the light of day in terms of Donkey stream, we are still developing Teleco for a full release in hopefully the fall.
Ooh. Yo, that's awesome. Let's go.
Yeah.
I had posted a comment where I was just like, man, it'd be really cool to see a full version of this. Oh man, I'm really excited for that.
I'm so glad. Wait. Yeah. At the very least, in terms of editing this video, I'm going to jump down this hole now, and we will all see the ending of HoloCore if my game cooperates with me. There we go.
Hopefully. At the very least, it will change scenes, so it'll offload the current scene, so hopefully that'll fix the frame rate. Oh,
right. False has an infinity of combinations, but truth has only one mode of being. So I forgot about this quote. Where did this come from?
I think that we were just Googling quotes that involve the word mode.
It's
that was something that we also found within like the first hour after the theme being announced, so we kind of stuck with that.
Nice. I did actually suggest that. I was just like, it sounds like they just Googled for a quote that involved the word mode. But it's fine. Like it works.
I mean, it definitely helped to kind of center us. I think in terms of some elements of just the general mood of the game. So yeah.
Sometimes all you need is the vibe. All right, so that was HoloCore. I'm going to now do my housekeeping in the opposite direction, but at the very least, we have the music from nownoir here. Very good, and I will just leave that on. I think your game has good high ratings. Oh, thank you, Cyberwitch. I hope yours does as well. God damn, nownoir just goes off. Jesus Christ. But right, so in Teleco, I guess oh my god, dude, Jesus Christ.
Well, I'll definitely be looking forward to that. Are you planning on doing like any like alpha builds or anything like that, or any like public testing for it?
I'm probably going to be shipping the tests for the game that we're working on for this game jam to testing for my Discord server. So if any of you aren't in the Discord and would like to play test the game that we're working on for the Boss Rush game jam, then you can absolutely hop in. But yeah, and I will probably be doing that also for the for Teleco when that gets off the ground, I suppose, because again, playtesting early and often. It is a bit disappointing to spoil the story elements of a story-oriented game to the people that you want to, but something's got to give, right? So
yep.
I did want to say that Teleco, I guess since you were curious about it, I wanted to mention my sort of influences for it. So I didn't realize that I had like an interesting concept until we sort of already shipped the game. I came up with the mechanics out of a dead sleep after thinking that I wouldn't participate in the game jam. And then over time I was just like, you know what, it would be cool if I had like a Sadako inspired ghost, and then like I had this character Teleco 20XX as a joke that I had like a long running word association game I was playing for like years. And I was like, how about I just make this the character? I'm going to make Teleco the character, and it's going to be a Sadako inspired ghost. And I put like a lot of attention to detail into it that like I personally didn't think anybody was going to catch, but at the very least, at least one person, the Left on Red developer, Unclaimed Fame, Montoya, the channeler speaks in Yellow Helvetica font on black bars, which is how they used to subtitle old movies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but other than that, like the inspirations, like in terms of the full game, I want to make it sort of inspired by anime exorcism stories. We talked about problematic things. I unfortunately must say that Bakemonogatari is probably one of my influences there.
I still I've never gotten around to watching anything past the first season, but
it's really well written. Like Made in
I've
Abyss is
watched
really
some
well
other
written.
stuff from Nisio scene. I've seen Katanagatari.
Katanagatari is really great.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, it's a fun time. But there's that. There's Mushishi. There's Mononoke. Not Princess Mononoke, just Mononoke.
Yeah. Yep. I'm aware. Yep.
But
Familiar
see,
with it.
yeah. So the twist in Japanese exorcism stories and anime specifically for this like subgenre tends to be that and even in The Ring, in Western media we tend to portray ghosts and monsters as just like a thing that you have to fight and defeat. But in these stories, it tends to often be the twist is that the ghost is actually the one that's haunted. There's a thing tethering them to the world, and finding their reason for being tortured enough to stay around is the way that you give them closure and the way that you make them pass. And so I kind of want to do that for Teleco. It might be a bit heavy, but I'm still looking forward to implementing it because man. But yeah, I didn't.
One more potential point that might be interesting that could be more like interesting reference. Have you watched Serial Experiments Lane?
I did, and I don't really remember a lot, so maybe I'll watch it again.
It that was one thing where I was like, I wonder
Mm-hmm.
if they had any sort of influence from Lane or not. But
Yeah.
personal big favorite of mine.
Yeah.
Really
So
love Lane.
speaking of Western Eastern dichotomies, in the West, whenever we have TV, like huge assortments of TVs that tend to be arranged in a wall, very orderly and everything, the CRT wall is very ubiquitous here. But in Japan, they make these like giant trash towers of TVs, and they don't tend to be like, okay, so somebody actually mentioned, I think it was I can blank on the developer who said it, but somebody was like, this reminds me of the Cowboy Bebop. Oh no, it was the Remainder dev.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I think I saw that comment. Yeah.
Yeah, the Remainder dev who was just like, this reminds me of the Cowboy Bebop episode and the Serial Experiments Lane episode, or just Serial Experiments Lane in general. And I was like, you know what? I've seen both of those. I remember them, but because like what I told people was like, I want to do the TV tower thing that Japan likes doing. The citations that I made were just the last ones that I've seen, which are Nier Automata and Persona, which I haven't actually played.
Persona 4, yeah.
But I know that Persona 4 does it. So
yeah,
those TV towers tend to just be aesthetic and they're not really like tied into the story. So I thought it would be cool to actually like integrate it into the story in a fundamental way. Like this is the story behind TV towers, and cynically speaking, if these people were to play my game, I would hope that they associate TV towers with Teleco from now on.
yeah.
But yeah, I had a lot of like anime
Are there
influences.
any plans for you guys to potentially implement like being able to walk around in 3D, or are you going to just be kind of like locked to interacting with the TV tower?
I'm thinking about it because some people have asked me what I'm going to do with the Channeler's character. Also, just as an aside, I was originally going to call the game the Channeler because it made a lot of sense. I was just like, somebody who talks to ghosts who flips through TV channels. The first thing that I wanted to happen in the game is that you had to flip the TV to input to channel 3 to make the input go. But I didn't have enough time to implement that, and I didn't want to extend the runtime of the game any. But people have been asking me what to do with the Channeler's character, and I'm still thinking about what to do with it, but I think it's mostly just going to be a vehicle for the or for the player, so I'm not sure how much I'm going to give them control over it because it's not that important, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So yeah, it's going to be very story oriented, and I have a strong idea of where it could go, and hopefully people appreciate it.
Lots of interesting like puzzle mechanics that you could potentially explore.
Oh yeah. But I'm mostly excited about what to do with the character. Also, my modeler spent a week making Teleco's model. I sketched her out. I was like, okay, she's gonna look like this, and that sketch was ultimately what was on the screen when you adjust the antenna. And then he like made the model, he sent it back to me, and I'm like, all right, now this is the pose that I'm thinking of when she's hanging out the window. And then he gave me the pose, and I'm like, all right, now tilt her eye down so she's looking from a downward angle or from an upward angle. And then he did, and then I saw it, and I literally like screamed. I was like, yes, we are cooking! Like, oh my god. uh, I was so fucking hyped, dude. I'm just like,
That's so exciting. Yeah.
yeah, because
I mean, that's definitely one of those things where I've experienced a little bit. Like, one of the things I immediately dove into after HoloCore, like I started working on some on like an N64 styled thing.
mhm.
And as I was like putting it all together and it started to look more and more like an N64 game, I'm like, yeah, yeah, that's the like there's the weird bilinear filtering that the N64 did, but it's on 3 points instead of four, so it's all blurry and fucked up looking. Like yeah, that's the look. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, it's just like, yes, I've boiled it down to the essence of N64 games.
Yeah.
Everything is blurry as fuck. It's like if the equivalent on PS1 would be like you made the graphics so fucking wiggly, the
Yeah,
wiggliest
yeah,
graphics.
the weird God, like I forget what it's called, like the affine texture warping. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so silly because like back in the day, even I was just like, why is everything so fucking wiggly? It's not like this on the N64. Uh, but yeah, very cool. Man, because it was the most sophisticated model that he had done up to that point, like by far and away.
Yeah.
He's also very inspired by the N64 era, and I was just like, I'm thinking more Wind
Ugh,
Waker for this one.
yeah.
Uh, so
I am incredibly just like addicted to the look of the N64. I definitely I think that that's one thing that I want to push towards in terms of like aesthetics that I want to work with in games. Also, partially because of the fact that it's really easy to do the N64.
right, right, right.
Because, like, a lot of the textures, it's just like, oh, you need a grass texture. Well, you take this 64 by 64 grass texture and you stretch it really far over one singular plane. And there you go. Now you have your grass.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. Man. Yeah, the technical limitations are very funny. But yeah, I'm very and personally, I actually don't really have much of a mind for systems programming. It feels good when I'm doing it right. It feels good when I'm implementing it cleanly.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I'm just trying to get the fucking thing made. I'm just like, dude.
Oh, absolutely.
But
And that's all that matters at the end of the day. Like how, like you said, with the duct tape holding the games together, like as long as the thing gets done, that's
mhm.
all that matters.
I have a new mantra after doing all of these interviews, which is that perfectionism is ironically a flaw, and completion is perfection. You should aim to be a completionist more than a
Yep.
perfectionist.
And also, there's also the mantra of progress, not perfection. That's also a really good one that I like to stick to.
Yeah, exactly.
Progress, not perfection.
Do you or
Absolutely.
Hiera or I guess nownoir is doing commissions, so that's probably just like it's they're doing freelance. But are you perfection is the enemy of good? Yes, very much.
Yep,
Uh,
absolutely.
but do you plan on doing any other game jams? I'm currently doing the Boss Rush game jam. We have 30 days to do that. Well, now about 27 days, but
I don't know what I'm currently doing. I have just been randomly jumping around to a bunch of different things in Godot and daydreaming about big projects that I want to do. So I think that really what I need to do is I just need to probably jump into another game jam just to keep the momentum going,
hell
keep
yeah,
working on things and keep trying to grow as a developer because I definitely think that one of the biggest thing that's keeping me from diving headfirst into one of like five different big projects that I want to do is a little
hmm
bit of anxiety in terms of what I don't know and all of the potential pitfalls of developing a full game.
right, right,
I've
right.
throwing myself off the deep end and releasing a full Steam game, I learned a lot in that process. And a lot of what I learned was that there's so much that I don't know.
Oh yeah.
So, like,
Uh,
as a result, the process of learning has definitely opened up a whole new level of anxiety
mm,
that I think can really only be alleviated through just getting more experienced in game development.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a learning process. Knowing what you don't know, or at the very least that you don't know anything, is very valuable. Also, hello, Winged Fox Dev. I think perfection is a very useful trait, but letting it stop you from completion makes it a flaw indeed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think perfectionism is just like the broader sense of this thing has to be perfect. Like, it is by definition kind of holding you back in some way. But
I think that's just important to be goal oriented
yeah,
and having realistic goals,
yes,
knowing what you can or cannot accomplish in
mhm,
a reasonable time. And also, I guess, maybe like knowing what you're comfortable with, like
yeah,
what level of compromise you feel is acceptable, because there always needs to be some kind of compromise. You can never have the perfect, flawless vision that you have in your head that's
right.
not obtainable.